The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Crime News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Crime News Talk. Today is September 15th, 2025. We are live to tape on episode 876. And today, Cooercing Conflict. Signing on from off the grid, Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy Basil, and you are not crazy.
And my name is Gonz, at Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Deceit films, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It is Monday.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
And I'm hurting. My head hurts. I'm not feeling too great, but show must go on. And we must celebrate the 1958. What was that?
Oh, it's just going to continue. I didn't know. Okay, we've got your presentation.
The 1958 Jack Kilby invented the first integrated circuit. So we can thank Jack today for doing the great things that he did for us to have computers. Yes.
Thank you for computers. Okay, great. Yeah, lovely. Was that on the Canary Cry calendar, or where did you?
Absolutely is on the calendar. Where I don't have any other calendars. I don't know what's going on with anything in life apart from the Canary Cry calendar.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Go to canarycrysupply.com, sign up for the supply drop, get your Canary Cry calendar coming up in the fourth quarter shipment. Yeah, I'm feeling the same way. It's been a rough week. It's this ongoing, of course, the events of last Wednesday, horrible. The next day, horrible. And then just sort of the onslaught of the PSYOP, pretty horrible all the way through. I tried my best, for those who follow me on X or whatever, to survive the sort of social media algorithm rage, operation in full swing. Of course, we all experienced the backlash, the celebration of the left, and then the backlash against the celebration of the left, and all the leftists losing their collective minds, but also their jobs. And that felt kind of nice. And then you get the response, and then you got the news going back and forth on who's Tyler, what's his face, did he do this, was it Republican, was it? It's just absolute madness. I think it's more maddening than maybe that we've seen maybe ever. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, you could maybe compare it to the sort of COVID situation, even early COVID, the confusion, the back and forth, the nonsense. But even that was sort of spread out over a couple years. Even this feels like they fit an entire COVID worth of mind control, agitation, propaganda into about 6 days. And I hope everybody's staying safe out there. And when I say safe, I primarily mean keeping, protecting your heart and your soul from the absolute sort of demonic operation to confuse and destroy out there. I mean, I had to keep logging off. I couldn't do it. I'd log off. It'd be off for like a day, maybe two. And I go, okay, let's see what's going on. Let's see if it's died down. Nope, it's as brutal as it's ever been. Okay, gotta log off again. I hope other people tried to do that, because like I said, the operation is to crank up the emotion, the confusion, the division as high as it can possibly go. And you know what? You got to give it to them. Pretty impressive. The degree by which they have expanded all of our understanding about just how fed up we can be with everything going on.
Yeah, well, I was mentioning to some people over the weekend that I stopped watching Netflix and Marvel movies, and it's just been a while, at least a couple years. I think when I was sick, like 2 or 3 years ago, was the last time I sat there and watched a bunch of movies. So I really don't watch film like that. I got kids around, and so that footage, Basil, that like the closer shot one, that one really did bother me for like 48 hours. I had to kind
It
of.
bothered everybody. It was
I know it bothered everyone, but I know there are people out there that was like, "Oh, we got to analyze it," and this, and I'm like, not even going to try because like it's just so disturbing. But
No, I was confirming your feelings because that was
sure,
another theme that we saw just over and over and over. Even people who wouldn't consider themselves like invested in politics or whatever, even those, I mean, even Tim Dillon's a good example, a guy who makes fun of every single sort of shooting in the most,
right?
inappropriate way. Even he
Uh-huh.
starts out his show with like, nope, that was different. This is different. Not going to do it. That was a collective sort of trauma trigger that is going to stick with everybody who saw it.
Now, I don't know if you saw this, Basil, but one of the premier Christian apologists, his name is Dr. Frank Turek, was right there when it happened. In fact, he got reeled into. Did you see these videos about these guys with hats around the tent? They're making hand signals and all that kind of stuff. Did you see any of that
Oh,
type of
yeah.
talk going on?
Yeah.
Okay, so Frank Turek was accused of being one of those people because he's holding up a phone and he kind of rubs his ear or something like that and pulls on his shirt. And there's another guy that steps in front of him and does some hand motions and stuff that people are saying is suspicious. But yeah, apparently Frank was standing right there. And man, I feel for the guy. I mean, he's a Christian apologist. He's been out there defending the gospel for a long time. He's more well known. I don't know if you have heard Frank Turek, Dr. Frank Turek, Basil, but yeah, it's just one of those things where I feel for the guy because, as far as I understand, good Christian man defending the gospel, doing apologetics out there publicly, and for him to be standing there and get accused of being a part of the operation. And again, we never know, but at the same time, if he is who he says he is and all this for years publicly, man, to be reeled in not just to the actual situation, but also to this other side of the internet that I'm sure a lot of people have been siloed from. These types of events break those different silos or echo chambers, and I think I see it as a social event in that way, and I think that's where the chaos is just overwhelming. With COVID, it was like people got to warm up to this idea that we're all just online and saying things and making claims and investigating and researching and publishing truth and all this kind of stuff. But now everyone's here or doing internet things, and so when something happens, this acceleration is only going to get crazier, I think, over time. And so in that way, yeah, the whole concept of touch grass is legit. Like, really go touch grass, people. Like, go outside and just
Yeah.
try to
So
not think about it.
here's what I don't think we want to do on the show today, because like I said, every single day brings some new whiplash of information. I mean, we're going to touch on a couple of the broader things. I think we've spotted one of the larger movements towards the redefinition of what has been called the left-right paradigm, these types of things. There's endless, it would be unprofitable for us to try to go through each step of the PSYOP as it's been going on for 6 days, 7 days, whatever it is, 6 days, I guess, since it's happened. And, I don't think it's I think it's unhealthy to try to do that. I think it's unhealthy going through it live as it happens. However, there's some broader things I think kind of tie into some trends and things we spotted in the coming weeks. I think the timing is interesting for a lot of reasons, but of course we cannot skip over one of the most important hints that something was going on, and this came from both Kash Patel and the Utah governor during one of their early press conferences here. And thank you everybody who brought this to our attention, and I'm surprised and heartened more than ever that this type of signaling is being recognized. Of course, we got to question the PSYOP of everybody being tuned in to the signaling, because of course they know what this is going to mean. But I think there's some very interesting subtle clues to what's going on. This was Kash Patel just about 33 hours after the event on Wednesday.
Head of the FBI.
A lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay?
Unindicted co-conspirators
arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m.
Let me start that over.
Myself and Deputy Director Bongino arrived on the scene at approximately 5:30 p.m. on 9/11. The governor led a press conference last night at approximately 8 p.m., where at my direction, the FBI released a never-before-seen video of the suspect. We also released new images to the public of the suspect. And just last night, the suspect was taken into custody at 10 p.m. local time. In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period.
33 is the number of completion of the Great War.
136 hours, specifically 33. 33.
Be precise, 33. The signaling number that, of course, so many are keeping their ears out for nowadays, being used. And again, yes, and this is the most interesting ways that it can be used. And we see it all the time. You see it in headlines, they'll be like, over 33 cats stuck in a tree.
33 different asteroids or whatever. 33 armadillos the size of this
asteroid. How many more than 33? Was it 34? Why are you rounding it down to 33?
Yeah.
This type of thing. But that's not all. We also got a nice little confirmation from the governor of Utah here. And keep an ear out, keep an eye out for this weird little laugh tell as he looks back at Kash Patel.
No sound. Oh, these are all turned all the way down. Let me try that again.
This bad stuff happens. And for 33 hours, I was...
33 hours.
Why is he so nervous? Is he not used to being on camera? Is this?
No, he's very sad. He's very disturbed. And for those who are just listening, it's very strange to watch because he's kind of putting on this like nonchalant kind of movement. He's kind of bouncing and he goes, for 33 hours. And he looks all the way back directly behind him at Kash Patel. He goes, 33 hours. Huh. 33 hours. Huh. Can you believe it? As he's like checking with Kash Patel to like make sure he said the right thing or
to me it came off as sort of not an inside joke, but like a reference to a conversation they had.
Exactly.
Like kind of 33, right? 33, right? Like a little elbow jab kind of thing. Let me
Here I am. I'm saying
this bad stuff happens. And for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us. That somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another.
Okay. Is he saying that he had hoped that it would happen to somebody from not their town?
Not to somebody, but by somebody. He was just hoping.
He's saying, okay. The suspect. All right.
Yeah,
we
don't actually need
okay, all right. That's fine.
Unless there's something else in here you want. We don't need
No, I think we're good.
So one of the really, the really frustrating thing, one of the interesting things about this whole operation is that Kash Patel, they almost immediately started releasing video footage, we already got video footage immediately because of all the phones that were rolling at the same time. And then the footage of the guy on the roof, and then the footage of another person seeing the guy on the roof. And then there is some footage of a drone. And so instantly this this treasure trove of trauma material, but also stuff for people to start combing through. Kash Patel started releasing things almost immediately. Okay. And we've all lived through the back and forth of, oh, he's from a Republican family. Oh, that means he's a Republican. No, but he's you know,
yes. All the trickling out of the quote unquote details.
But he's a liberal and he has a trans roommate, and, you know, this is back and forth and back and forth. And, you know, whatever bots are used to just kind of keep the rage going are like still at it, because 90% of the posts that you'll see sort of saying this guy's a Republican or whatever, just completely ignoring actually information that's out there. But there was just this morning, Kash Patel came out, gave another report. So he's sort of starting to round out and solidify the official story. And that's what we're going to make sure to focus on here. This is part of the official story, as the pontificating or the estimating or the this or the that kind of starts to come in, and gravity pulls it together to try to take some sort of solid form. And of course, from the FBI. And here's just a little tidbit from Kash Patel's time on Fox this morning, updating everybody on the solid info.
His family has collectively told investigators that he subscribed to left-wing ideology, and even more so in these last couple of years. And he had a text message exchange, the suspect, with another individual, in which he claimed that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and he was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for. Those are factually accurate investigatory findings by the FBI that we've handed over to the local authorities and the federal authorities to make their prosecutorial decisions. But I believe in this instance of such public importance, the public has a right to know. And I've told you I'm committed to transparency, and that's what I'm doing here today.
Why didn't that person that he was talking to, why didn't that person say something?
You know, our investigation is ongoing. That's a great question. And we don't have an answer on that just yet.
Don't have an answer on that just yet, but you can hear his words. These are the factual blah, blah, blah. These are the facts. And just to make a note about it, actually, Guns, if we want to skip down a couple tabs over to the Politico article, there is an issue. Kash Patel is being brought in for a congressional hearing, I believe, either tomorrow or Wednesday, or both. The headline on Politico is Patel says he doesn't regret prematurely announcing suspect in Kirk killing was in custody. FBI Director Kash Patel on Monday defended his premature announcement that authorities had detained a criminal suspect in Charlie Kirk's killing, a statement that drew sharp criticism from some conservatives and others. In an interview with Fox and Friends, Patel
said everybody.
Yeah. Patel said he had no regrets about his Wednesday social media post, arguing he had been striving for transparency in the process of identifying the culprit. Now, this is when he had announced that they had immediately in custody his name? George Zinn or something, which is a strange fellow, a fellow who right when it happened stood up, kind of turned himself into police and was, kind of shouting crazy stuff. Turns out they had taken him into custody and then almost immediately released him, which really kind of freaked everybody out. The fact that the cops or the FBI had sort of so obviously taken the bait for some sort of patsy or something like that, get everybody's hopes up. This is why you're hearing now Kash Patel in his announcements say, these are the facts. This is the blah, blah, blah,
facts.
Blah, blah, blah.
Wait, why didn't it say facts right here? Oh, that's the fun fact song.
That's the fun facts, Guns. Fun facts.
Yeah. I was going to say that that it took 33 hours. The distraction may have caused those 33 hours. These misdirections.
It's possible.
And maybe that was the assignment. You must buy the killer 33 hours before apprehension.
Right.
To construct a full ritual.
So, for those on the right, or those who consider themselves conservative, or maybe those who are in a position where they want to be trusting the FBI a little bit more now because there's a different party in power, Kash Patel is facing a lot of this angst from, as Politico reports, even conservatives. The handling of the various pieces of information, the instant release of various pieces of video footage, which, according to Kash Patel, is what led to the capture of this fellow. The story on how he was turned in also keeps changing. First it was his friend told a minister, and the minister told the police, and then it was his roommate who told his dad, and the dad turned him in, and then this keeps changing over and over. It is the chaos that makes for a controllable situation. But in the midst of all this, of course, the conspiracy theories abound. Okay, the conspiracy theories coming from every angle. Of course, you've got conspiracy theories that include Israel. You've got conspiracy theories that include the Trump administration. You've got, they just keep going. This is the world that we live in. There was let's see here. There was one article and interview that is very interesting, that's being sort of latched onto to a degree. Now, we're going to talk about some of the stuff in this article. This was the Max Blumenthal article from the Gray Zone, and he did an interview subsequently with Tim Dillon. For those who don't know, Tim Dillon is a comedian who generally has been on the side of sanity for the most part in recent years. Max Blumenthal and the Gray Zone are kind of an interesting situation as well. They haven't necessarily been on one side or the other. They've done some good reporting on some things that maybe conservatives would appreciate, and some on the other side. He's sort of demonized by both sides. But in this case, there's some demonization specifically because he starts making some connections with the storyline of Charlie Kirk's recent, I don't know, maybe ideological shifts or some connections. I'll say this: Tucker Carlson appears in this, etc., etc. Now, the Gray Zone article is titled "Charlie Kirk Refused Netanyahu Funding Offer, Was Frightened by Pro-Israel Forces Before Death, Friend Reveals." We're not going to dig into that quite yet. However, because there is this question about the FBI and Kash Patel, we're in this world where conservatives would like to think that the FBI is getting cleaned up, and the Kash Patel is getting all the nonsense under control. Of course, there's still lots of people who question whether the FBI has been sort of, cleaned up or brought under control, or if situations like these, especially with young men, especially with chronically online young men, over and over and over, we've seen what No Agenda calls the FBI 6-week cycle, where more often than any of us should be comfortable with, when a young man is sort of radicalized online, once it's dug into, there's some pretty strange contact between, various FBI agents or DOD people. This happened with Matthew Crooks, the attempted Trump assassin. Turns out he had been in contact with the FBI for weeks beforehand. He was training at a shooting facility that was a common federal law enforcement shooting facility. Just a bunch of weird stuff like this. However, in this Max Blumenthal interview with Tim Dillon, he claims to have been and be in contact with someone inside the Trump White House who's as close as the Oval Office, who has given him some information. And one of the first interesting parts about it is perhaps what the Trump inner circle thinks about the FBI's handling and the FBI's official story. Here's a clip.
Do we need to warn about language? It is a Tim Dillon clip.
I don't think so. I don't think.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I apologize if so. I don't think so. Again, this is one where Tim Dillon was taking it a little bit more seriously, but apologies if something slips in.
Yes, did the source? I understand that. Did your source, who is a highly placed Trump confidant of some kind, do they? I don't know if you can make an inference or if they had said anything to you, but like, were they considering that as a possibility?
Yes, I would say they don't accept the official story, or no one even knows what the official story is.
So a highly placed person in the Trump inner circle doesn't believe the official story of Charlie's murder.
I mean, no one does, but I would just say that the phrase I remember hearing is, it feels like there's more at play here. And that's not the only person with more power than me in Washington that I'm hearing that from. But
so you're hearing from multiple people that are connected and tapped in, that they believe that there's more at play or more to the story than simply one radicalized young man.
I heard subsequent to publishing this story from another source who I would describe as a administration insider that corroborated the account in this story. First, that Charlie KIRK was actively and aggressively personally lobbying Trump against bombing Iran in June. And two, that right now, the FBI is not being forthcoming, and there's a lot of frustration with the FBI not sharing information.
So, because, I mean, just to reiterate again, you're not a knight.
He continues to reiterate.
You're a reporter.
Continues to reiterate. It's kind of funny. It's weird watching Tim Dillon over and over and over try to like very clearly lay out this. He does it again and again in that clip. But there you go. So allegedly, there's a Trump insider telling Max Blumenthal that the Trump Trump's inner circle,
insiders,
yes, are not trusting the FBI official story here. And I think this is an important thing for us to keep in mind, because the Kash Patel and the FBI, with every new piece of information, with every new, news outlet, every new appearance on Fox, of which there's at least 15 minutes. I brought that Kash Patel clip to give you just a little bit of the certainty with which they are putting out the story right now. But it went on for about 15 or 16 minutes. And really, you listen to the whole thing, and point by point by point is pretty precisely telling conservatives exactly what they want to hear about who this guy was, how he got radicalized, again, his relationships with various kinds of people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the official FBI story right now is hitting all the perfect talking points that, in general, conservatives want to hear right now, which is a tempting thing, because of course
it fits the exact profile of everything leading up to this whole thing with the recent trans shooter. Yeah.
It's giving conservatives the upper hand in the sort of cultural moment.
Cultural debate. Yeah.
Right.
We talk about fifth generation warfare here often.
Fifth gen warfare.
They're targeting you.
Fifth gen warfare.
And Kash Patel is precisely a man who lays out the quote unquote official narrative for the story, right? I mean, in terms of a legacy model, the FBI would traditionally be the one. Everyone's waiting for the FBI to give us the information. And so they have lost quite a bit of influence in that regard culturally, but I guess institutionally, they're still considered, obviously, they're part of the government and everything.
Yeah. And people might be tempted. People might be tempted to go, oh, well, with all the Epstein stuff, we can't trust the FBI, especially the FBI 6-week cycle, blah, 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 blah. All that's really stinks. But then come out and go, well, Kash Patel says that everything I think about the shooting is true. And so there you go. That's kind of the credible information on that.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're doing the little distraction campaign with Melania Trump. I think it was the New York Times. Was it the New York Times that came out with an article that basically said that Melania was involved with the Epstein stuff, and then they had to retract the article, and it was a whole thing just a couple of days ago. So maybe that's part of the way to keep things kind of roundabout, get everyone chasing stuff around. Did you want to go to this next post here by this?
Yeah. So let me walk us through it here. So there you go. You got the official word from the FBI that it was a liberal guy. That the profile of this individual fits perfectly with what conservatives, kind of knew instinctually right off the bat. Now, of course, there's always the other side of the I'm sorry. Which post do you have up right now? Here.
That's this is the sense receptor. It might have been one you were just talking about already with.
Okay. That's possible. Okay. So now the other side is, of course, you've got mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, trying to say he's a MAGA guy, trying to say he's a Republican. They're a gun-loving, Mormon family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what evolved after that, and now this is where the connections are going to start getting not complicated, but where you have to look at the second layer here. So for a while, and still a little bit right now, CNN specifically, MSNBC, the left side of the spectrum, started putting out this narrative that not just was this kid, a Republican and a Trump supporter, which is untrue, at least as far as Kash Patel is concerned, but that he was a groyper, okay? And groypers are very interesting and connects with some other things we had been paying attention to. A groyper is a name for a supporter, follower, whatever, of Nick Fuentes. And we've brought some previous sort of interesting swings in the Nick Fuentes story recently. But to have the mainstream media latch on so tightly to an incredibly obscure obscure group of people, one that, any sort of normal Republican probably wouldn't even know about, much less want to identify with. But the media machine went into kind of full swing to say, hey, actually, this was a far, far right kid who didn't like that Charlie Kirk wasn't extreme enough. And so you've got the right versus the right. Now, there's a connection here. This is a clip from CNN on one of their lame roundtable shows. The person who is going to be answering the question about groypers is a reporter named, what's her name? Ellie Reese, is that her name? We'll get it here. It's Ms. Reese. Now, Ms. Reese is connected to the Max Blumenthal conversation with Tim Dillon, because Tim Dillon did a 2-hour-long interview with Ms. Reese for CNN. This was maybe last year, way early this year, something like that, where she's supposed to be CNN's cool online culture, deep undercover internet culture reporter lady, keeping an eye out for the far right. And she's young. She's probably younger than me, and kind of has that look, got this big glasses. And so she's the one that they bring in to answer about the secretive, strange online group called the Groypers, and this was her response.
I have to ask you this because a lot of people are asking what this means. A lot of people are talking about this word Groyper. What does that even mean? And could this man be one of them?
Yeah. All this stuff used to be so fringe, and now it's like at the center of politics, and it's a little bit difficult for me to believe.
It is a little wild.
But Groypers are the fans of the far-right podcaster Nick Fuentes. He's been around for a very long time. He was at Charlottesville. He was at Jan 6. Fuentes has long had a feud with Charlie Kirk, or had. He would show at his events. His fans would show up at their events, and they would ask Kirk leading questions intended to trigger Kirk into moving further to the right, particularly on immigration and gay rights. So Fuentes has totally disavowed this violence. He made a very forceful statement against that last night. But people are trying to tie this shooter to the Groypers because, and this is a little obscure, he posed in a squat in an Adidas tracksuit for a Halloween costume. His mom posted that he was being a man in a meme. People have seen pictures of Pepe the Frog associated with the alt-right, dressed in that same tracksuit doing the squat. However, that meme itself is a reference to Eastern Europeans posing like that in Adidas tracksuits. So, like, again, like it's like grasping at.
Yeah, I mean, it's also mixed up. And
so
her name is Ella Reeve.
Ella Reeve, thank you. So even Ella Reeve, CNN's own, deep undercover internet reporter, is saying this connection is so bizarre and so obscure, I can't even put my, CNN credentials behind making this connection. And CNN was not the only one trying to make this connection. And it really stems from the fact that Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk did consider themselves adversaries of each other. Now, we'll get more on that in a second. But here is a clip from Max Blumenthal on Tim Dillon about Nick Fuentes in the Charlie Kirk context.
Charlie Kirk began coming under pressure from his own base. I would say, I actually forgot which year it was, but it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was called the Groyper Wars. And Charlie Kirk would do these TPUSA tours around the country, and young men would file in, and they would, you get to question Charlie Kirk and debate him. And they hit him from an angle he never expected. They were from this organization called the Groypers, which sort of follows Nick Fuentes. They're anti-Israel. They're kind of anti-Jewish. Some people call them white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. They're very anti-Israel, and they believe they're the true voice of America first because the U.S. government has fallen under the control of this malign foreign power in Israel. And so they would confront Charlie Kirk with the history of, for example, the USS Liberty, the U.S. naval ship that was deliberately struck by the Israeli military in the 1967 war in order to cripple that boat because it was a surveillance boat. It was listening to Israeli communications. And they killed scores of sailors. And they would confront Charlie Kirk with the difference between Israeli interests and American interests while holding up a cross. And Charlie Kirk would just shut down the conversation because he knew that if he would give an inch to them, it would threaten the relationship with his donors, and TPUSA would collapse. Now, after October 7th, the pressure was just too extreme. The whole grassroots of the conservative movement, everyone under 35, started to question the U.S.-Israel relationship because they wanted to be America first. And they saw Netanyahu just leading Trump around by the balls.
Yeah. We can pause that right
this
there.
Israeli.
Just trying to stop it before that. So, so now we have this connection being made. Now, it's important to note that Nick Fuentes is sort of famous for being at least anti-Israel and perhaps even as anti-Semitic. And so
that is the label, and he's leaned into using those trolls.
Yeah, and I'm not here to defend and say that he's not anti-Semitic. He's a wild character. That's kind of what he's known for. And keep in mind, Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk both started doing what they're doing at 18 years old. Charlie Kirk was 31 when he was killed. Nick Fuentes is 26, but they have this weird thing in common, which is that they started really, really, really early. And up until recently, we noted this on the previous Nick Fuentes segment, up until extremely recently, Nick Fuentes was so obscure. He had been banned almost immediately from absolutely everything you could be banned from. This was years ago, even before COVID, I believe. You know, he was maybe the prototype for, oh, you're banned from every single thing. What do you do? And so he had to go completely off all platforms. He kind of started his own platform type of thing, and just kind of was there simmering in the underculture, in the sort of hidden parts of the internet, because what he had to say was, you know, absolutely ludicrous for the ears
For
of
the mainstream,
for the ears of anybody who kind of wasn't in that sort of underbelly of opinion. So that's where he's remained for a very long time. You can contrast that with Charlie Kirk, who's basically become the mainstream in sort of cultural conservatism. You know, what he was
especially for Gen Z. This is a Gen Z face for conservatism in America.
Yeah. And Charlie Kirk, this is something, you know, everybody's making the comments about because the left wants to convince everybody that Charlie Kirk was some sort of extremist wild man. And everybody on the right are conservatives who have heard Charlie, know what Charlie stands for. You go, he is the most tame conservative you could possibly hope for. The left. If you think he's the extreme, you have no idea how much more extreme things can be. And what's being referenced there is, you think Charlie Kirk is extreme? Wait until you hear about Nick Fuentes.
Well,
let me idea.
I'm glad you brought this up, and I'm glad I kept some of my notes and my links, because I do want to mention that this is part of the op that I recognize, and I've been kind of ranting a little bit about on social media. Not too much, but, you know, I get on there, I jump on, I say a couple words. Greg Gutfield on Fox. This is the day it happened. I saw this and I thought this, I mean, talk about Charlie Kirk was so extreme. And now what are we hearing? We're hearing people getting radicalized, right? And embracing that word as conservatives. Listen to Greg Gutfield here.
Yeah, I know that it's somewhat object of mockery to say thoughts and prayers, but thoughts and prayers for his family. And they need it from all of us. And Jesse's right. If they can do this, they are capable of anything. I think that was the message. I believe that was the message. It's really hard to radicalize Republicans.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, we're not the radical type. But if you thought that you were going to shut a movement down, you're going to get a rude awakening. You woke us the fuck up.
Oh, sorry. I forgot he said that on Fox.
Greg, you know,
I'm sorry.
This has actually been a difficult thing recently.
It has.
You know,
I forgot that he
doesn't
said.
matter if we're playing Nick Fuentes clips. Doesn't matter if we're playing Max Blumenthal
Fox
clips.
News.
Fox News. It is getting harder and harder to keep this a family show. So nobody blames you, but, you know, just so everybody knows, this is getting harder and harder to do.
Yeah. But anyway, that's my point being that, yes, and probably a great example of the point I'm trying to make is that, as Greg Gutfield says, it's hard to radicalize Republicans, but this did it. You know, this does it. This is the final straw. And that's the, oh man, it's such a perfectly easy bait for conservatives who are, I mean, they needed something, and every generation needs a trauma for the control mechanisms to work.
Sit tight.
Oh, yeah.
I've got more on that. Got more on that soon. So
okay.
So here we go. Let's take note of what we've got. We've got Max Blumenthal talking to Tim Dillon. Tim Dillon, connection with Ellie Reeve on CNN, who's talking about the Groypers. You've got Groypers. You've got CNN and Max Blumenthal talking about Nick Fuentes. And people who had not you know, if you've only heard of Nick Fuentes recently because of what we've been talking about, you'll know that one of the notable things is that Nick Fuentes recently started gaining popularity, or at least notoriety, because of Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson, seemingly out of nowhere,
on the map.
Begins to attack Nick Fuentes because Nick Fuentes, like everyone else, knew and talked about Tucker Carlson's connection with the CIA, his father's connection with the CIA. And Tucker Carlson gets together with Candace Owens and they get together and they just start saying, oh, I didn't know that my dad was in the CIA. Who's this Nick Fuentes guy? How did he know that my dad was in the CIA? Wow, he's so talented speaker, and he's such a, doing this weird, like, he's so talented and great and knows things before I even know things, but he's a bad guy and we should stay away from him, and he says crazy stuff, but my goodness, how did he know all these it's this weird thing, which really, because it's Tucker and Candace Owens, though, when those two start talking about something or someone, that something or someone becomes the conversation for everybody. So you had Tucker Carlson talking about Nick Fuentes, which brought him to the forefront, which I guarantee you CNN would not be talking about Groypers if it weren't for Tucker laying the foundation and making Nick Fuentes and Groypers a topic of conversation.
Bringing it up, right. Making it part of the conversation.
Jump over to another clip from Max Blumenthal and on Tim Dillon. This is Max Blumenthal describing some events in the past weeks or months of Charlie Kirk's life as he's trying to build this story that he's trying to tell.
So Charlie Kirk has to answer to his own grassroots base, and you can hear he's starting to make some noises. He's talking about October 7th possibly being an inside job. Israel let it happen in order to carry out long-term political goals. He starts to question whether Jeffrey Epstein was an Israeli Mossad agent at a time when the Epstein files were becoming an uncomfortable issue for Trump. And it all blew out into the open at TPUSA's July Youth Summit in, I believe it was Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
Might have been Tallahassee.
Yeah, Tucker gave the speech.
Right.
Right.
So Tucker gave a speech. I mean, that was the seminal moment, but it wasn't just Tucker. Megyn Kelly had started questioning Israel, and she's on stage calling Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad agent with Charlie. Comic Dave Smith, who, like myself, is a Jewish anti-Zionist, but he more comes from kind of the libertarian world. So he was welcomed on stage to debate a Zionist propagandist who works for Newsweek, Joshua Hammer. Debate, no, that's not something you want, especially at this point, if you are like a pro-Israel enforcer. And Dave Smith was openly talking about the slaughter of children in Gaza, and the crowd was cheering in this cathartic way. Then Tucker comes out, says, you should have your citizenship yanked if you fight for a foreign army. All right. Hundreds and hundreds, thousands of American Jewish youth go to Israel and fight for their army instead of our own. So that's a direct blow to not just the Israel lobby, but like the whole concept of Jewish communal life as it's understood by its leadership. Then Tucker calls out Bill Ackman, who's one of the biggest Netanyahu money men inside the US, who's pulling strings at Harvard, getting their funding pulled unless they crack down on Palestine activism. And he questions Bill Ackman. He calls him a scam artist and said, how did he make $9 billion? Like, where did it come from? I mean, and Bill Ackman, the next day, he couldn't really answer the question. He published like a 5,000 word meltdown Twitter post trying to defend his financial investments. It was just bonkers. I'd never seen anything like it. And it was all Charlie Kirk's fault for giving basically the people what they wanted. And after that, he started getting publicly attacked. Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, the two biggest Zionist enforcers in the media, who are very close to Netanyahu, biggest forces lobbying Trump to wage war on Iran, went off on TPUSA, said we can't be having a Big Ten if it includes kooks. Laura Loomer, we all know who she is. She publicly attacked Charlie Kirk and said he basically had to step down. He was getting attacked in pro-Israel media. What we didn't know, which I learned, is in private, the pressure was even more intense. He was being bombarded with text messages. And at some point, Netanyahu personally called him and offered to basically fund his organization to new levels that he never even imagined, which meant, Zionist Israeli takeover, complete like recapture of TPUSA, an organization they basically helped create. And Charlie Kirk turned him down. Now, after Charlie Kirk was killed, We know that Netanyahu wouldn't stop posting about him. Like minutes after he was killed, when his body was still warm, Netanyahu was posting about him, interrupting his 7-front war in the Middle East and his global assassination spree, where he's trying to kill people even inside a U.S. ally in Qatar.
Zionist. So you've got this narrative being presented by Max Blumenthal, which you can see this narrative all over the place and was almost immediately brought up as well, but from his sources inside, the Trump White House and his sources inside of TPUSA. He talks about this shift over the past few months of Charlie being put in kind of a sticky situation, but it all started with Tucker Carlson being allowed to get up at TPUSA and just go nuts. And, I actually pulled the clip of Tucker Carlson's speech from TPUSA in July. It's quite long, so, I don't know. You should go watch it if you'd like, but it has everything that you'd expect, and it has what Max Blumenthal included here. Yeah. But before Tucker and Kelly and Dave and these sort of anti-Zionist individuals were finally basically allowed to speak at TPUSA, Charlie Kirk is quite famous for being pro-Israel. That's part of his sort of very moderate views, his sort of very acceptable mainstream Republicanism was, he totally supported Israel. It just kind of, not in any sort of radical way, but, in kind of the standard American.
Yeah, just your standard conservative, your traditional conservative position on things. Have you seen the montage of the Charlie Kirk questions to Ben Shapiro? Apparently Ben Shapiro was one of the last guests.
Yes, I did see that. Right.
Okay, I have the clip. I can play a few seconds.
Yeah, you can play it. So this was what, his last appearance on
his last appearance, the Charlie Kirk show. And Ben, this is edited, so it's just Charlie Kirk's questions to Ben Shapiro, but they don't clip any of Ben talking here. We'll have the Ben clips, we'll talking about waffles and stuff. But and you'll hear some music in the background because this is an edit of those questions, but you'll get a flavor here. It goes on for 3.5 minutes. I'm only going to play a little bit here.
News this morning that quite honestly I'm a little confused by, and I was hoping you could navigate it and help us understand, which is that Israel bombed Qatar, which houses a lot of Hamas officials. What happened here? And if I were to introduce just the skeptical question, will this potentially endanger America's own interests in the Middle East? So please, Ben, help me better understand the situation.
Question number 2.
I just spent time in Japan, and one of the things that kind of looms over Japan is that Japan, they engaged in an unconditional surrender. That they said, we're done. And they laid down their arms, obviously, after the 2 atomic bombs. Very controversial. People have mixed opinions on it. I certainly do. But that it is unconditional surrender. Is that what Israel is aiming for here? I suppose that is a question that I get a lot on campus. What does success look like? Because I think we could all agree a long war is not good for Israel, a long, drawn-out war. And we're coming towards 2 years in about a month. So it's been about 23 months. So what does ultimate success look like in the Gaza Strip?
Do one more question. And
what other feedback or criticism would you have about this situation? I know that it's impossible for anyone to listen to everything that you ever say, but looking at this from an American perspective, what else would you say things could have been handled differently? Maybe on the PR front, maybe also just on a conduct front. Where would you say as an outsider with things that could have been handled better, more efficiently, or with more precision?
So he goes on. He's got a few more questions.
So soft. I mean, this was part of his talent. I mean, you witness the ways in which he was sort of very gently calling attention. Very careful and very good. I'm not even suggesting he's being sort of, I don't know.
He's not being a wimp. He's just, his delivery is gentle. It's like a,
right.
Yeah. It's coming at you it looks like a blanket, but it hits you like a I don't know, a wave or something. It's
Yeah, so this is kind of the atmosphere of Charlie Kirk, according to Max Blumenthal. These were some things that were happening simultaneously, or at least softly in the past few months. You've got Tucker Carlson sort of breaking the seal for anti-Israel rhetoric at TPUSA. Again, Tucker Carlson, the same guy who brought Nick Fuentes into the forefront, right?
the actual
Into the
cultural conversation. Yeah.
Right. And the connection with Groypers on CNN and Tim Dillon, you start to see this very specific sort of solid shape of influence of individuals as well as organizations kind of starting to tell the story. Now, let me be clear. This is not me or you, Gons, trying to make the case that whatever Max Blumenthal is saying here is true. This is not us presenting the case that we think Israel had anything to do with it. But what we're doing is stepping back and looking, instead of getting caught up in every single little detail being fed to the public to, jerk them around back and forth. But you step back and you start seeing this sort of web of events, personalities, and influence starting to, give some sort of structure to what we might be looking at as sort of an objective truth. Probably much more likely what we're looking at is the construction of the narrative for influence of conservative culture. Okay, because the big question is, what happens now? What happens now with Charlie Kirk? Now that Charlie Kirk's gone, we've lost the moderate mainstream easygoing conservative, Christian.
There's a God-shaped hole in the hearts of conservatives, and Nick Fuentes is here to fill it, baby. Here's Nick. Here's Nick Fuentes for everybody.
That's right. And so what we see, and we'll show a couple more things, is Nick Fuentes getting thrust into the conversation early by Tucker Carlson. This was about at the same time that Tucker Carlson broke the seal at TPUSA. Was about the same time, maybe a month later, is when he started bringing Nick Fuentes into the forefront.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can we just mention that on this podcast that we started to identify this particular geopolitical issue between the United States, especially conservatism and the youth, and Israel as sort of a coming to a head, so to speak. Mm-hmm. For the last 2 years, we've been talking about the separation of the Judeo-Christian ethic for America. And I mean, this is like the pinnacle, it seems like. And to hear Max Blumenthal talk about how it all kicked off in a July TPUSA, it's like, wow, that's where a convenient place for the story, neatly packaged to us, but clearly it's been ongoing for much longer. And, you look at a guy like Nick Fuentes, and some people say he's an op or whatever, and maybe he is now. Maybe he didn't intend to be, but it also goes back to this idea that if you are going to publish content online, as we have, Basil, we are throwing our name into the hat of, potential chess pieces for whatever game is being played. And so that's why, we've always emphasized what the core ideology or the core message is for any given content creator. Like, what is the foundational thesis? Because if they don't have one, then it's easily filled by sponsors and, whatever corporations or whoever is going to feed them some cash for that influencer or voice to exist. And how obviously that's tied into how, certain media groups support themselves. And so, those two indicators give us a clear idea. But with someone like Nick Fuentes, he seemed to certainly be put himself at the top of the list when it comes to usefulness, when it comes to this particular issue. He's been talking about this issue since the beginning, pretty much, right? I mean, that was it was almost like, you got to look back. You can really kind of tie all this to QAnon too, like loosely. I know people don't talk about QAnon anymore, but that whole sentiment of the white hats and, like an internal op and saving Israel for last and all this stuff. And I don't know if Nick Fuentes was a QAnon guy per se, but it all seems to be sort of the same operative, or at least same same dress up, when it comes to this type of conflict of information, because it is a information war, Basil, as Alex Jones has said for 20 some odd years. We are looking at all this information and trying to get to the bottom of it. And clearly, objectively, I've stated for a long time that there is a geopolitical issue here with certain loyalties when it comes to America first and Israel and all these things. But that's old news. Why now? And I think maybe it's because there is there was an opportunity that was seen by whoever, some social engineer or whatever, the principalities and powers behind it, to influence an entire generation. And maybe the enemy's plans were thwarted in some way in this regard. Like they thought that they can buy out the younger generation, and they can't. So now we have, you guys want to go this way? Well, we'll give you Nick Fuentes, like the most extreme thing we can think of or find that's got any kind of credibility or following. And so now we're going to cast you because we couldn't control you. Now we will control you, via other mechanisms. For example, Nick Fuentes is kind of the face of the new movement, like the villainous face.
Well, they're certainly trying. So there's so there's this transition going on right now. Now, we've got Nick Fuentes and the Groypers being thrust into the mainstream, first by Tucker, then by CNN. And now, it's an ongoing conversation right now about whether despite what Kash Patel is putting out as quote unquote fact about who the shooter was, the fact that he was online is stoking or feeding this narrative that he could have been a Groyper or something like that. Now, like I said before, Nick Fuentes, Charlie Kirk were at odds. They were adversaries. That was very clear. But I want to start. This was, again, and this Nick Fuentes fellow is very interesting. I brought that clip before about him responding to someone in his chat saying they won't pray for, school shooters. And he goes off on a real tangent that seems to be quite well informed through his Catholic faith, understanding sort of the fallen nature of man, and to use Christianity as a cudgel by which to, or a lever by which to, claim superiority over other people on a moral sense. He dived pretty deep into that. I want to play at least a little bit of Nick Fuentes's eulogy for Charlie Kirk. Okay. So this is his response afterwards. And then I'm going to show you Dave Smith and his response to Nick Fuentes. Again, remember, Dave Smith on stage with Tucker Carlson at TPUSA. So here's a little bit of Nick Fuentes talking about Charlie Kirk. I don't think there's any bad words, but if there is, apologies.
He was my opponent, but I would never wish death upon him or anything like that. And Charlie Kirk never had a kind word to say about me in his life. Now that he has died, I'll say some kind words about him. Although I didn't agree with him, I considered him a part of the political establishment. In many ways, I considered him part of the problem. In spite of that, it is undeniable that he was a towering figure in American conservatism. It's undeniable. He was ambitious. He was a hard worker. He did things I cannot do. A lot of people said after his passing, I saw some people make oblique references to it. They said, well, if Charlie Kirk was assassinated, now the far right will step up. I don't know that there's anyone that could fill his shoes. I don't know that there's anyone that can do what he did. He died at 31 years old and left a legacy that many people could not achieve in many lifetimes. He hosted a show 3 hours a day. He went and faced down his enemies in debate. He would take on almost any challengers. I say almost because he wouldn't debate me, of course, but nevertheless, would debate anybody, anywhere, stare them down, and people don't know how difficult that is. He would sit there for hours on any subject, and then he would return home from the command center and direct the largest youth organization, the most ambitious project in conservative politics maybe ever. And he did it all before the age of 31. An absolutely brilliant, sharp, fierce warrior for his values and his beliefs. And as I said, I disagreed with them strongly. I'll make no bones about that, and that hasn't changed. But you have to admire that this was a fighter, this was a worker, this was a champion, and above all else, maybe this is what I respected about him the most. We had our disagreements. Where we did agree is that he would go to these college campuses and proclaim the name of Jesus Christ. And ultimately, that is why he was killed. Everyone will be persecuted for the sake of Jesus Christ. Anyone, everyone, fighting and winning that spiritual battle for Christ and for his kingdom will be persecuted for his sake. And I don't believe Charlie Kirk was any different.
So there you go. I mean, again, you can see in the chat of this show how people feel about Nick Fuentes. And there's lots of good reasons to to feel those way about Nick. You know, this is one clip in a I don't know, superseding situation that he obviously, you know, was not a fan of Charlie Kirk. And, you know, whether he means this or not, again, his focus on the Christian aspect of it, the Jesus aspect of it, is something that we do keep seeing in various big moments for Nick Fuentes. This is the guy being pushed to the front by Tucker Carlson. This is the guy who's also being uplifted by Dave Smith. Now, if you don't know Dave Smith, he's a comedian. He's a libertarian. He shows up on all the big shows. He's got his own big show. Here is Dave Smith, again, on stage with Tucker at that, you know, TPUSA seal breaking ceremony on Israel. This is him responding to Nick Fuentes's eulogy for Charlie Kirk. There is one F word in there. I apologize.
And I think the test is just that, like, when something like this happens, you're appropriately horrified. You just go, that is awful. This is inexcusable. I feel horrible for the family and all that. You don't start like hate mongering and getting everybody worked up and furious about the other side. It's a thing that people do online. It's great for fucking clicks, and it's great for, you know what I mean? Like, and it feels good in a way too. I'm sure a lot of people genuinely believe it. It's easy to genuinely believe it in a moment like this. But like, you don't do that. You don't start jumping to wild theories and stating them as if they're fact when you know you can't even build a coherent theory, yet alone know this for a fact. You don't start doing that, and you don't start, like, you know, equivocating about who was really wrong or who wasn't. It's like, just be that. Just like, it's the most basic of tests. And I do have to say, man, that you know, I was really pleasantly I wouldn't say surprised, but I was very happy to see that, like, Nick Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors. I just saw on Twitter that he like you know, he just basically said the exact right thing, and then he canceled his show last night and was like, I'm just not going to do that in light of these events. And I don't know, I just thought, like, it's weird. Of course, in this world we live in, it's like Nick Fuentes is the one in this moment who, like, actually has the appropriate kind of adult reaction. That's where we're at in the. I don't mean that as a shot at Nick. This is purely a compliment to him. I'm just kind of making fun of the way he's caricatured versus the reality of it. But you know, and I'm just particularly giving him credit just because, you know, again, like, the way he's caricatured versus, like, how actually so many of these supposed grown-ups in the room are acting. But there were a lot of people who I thought really did that. And I do really appreciate that. I think, like, in these moments, like, for whatever the fuck we're doing, living in this world with people who follow us watch our shows and follow our social media accounts, for the people who have, like, somewhat of a following, you know, it's just like, if we're not doing anything else, it's like, it's a kind of, like, easy line for me to see, like, who are the good guys and the bad guys kind of based on they handle things like this.
Did we pass the test, you think? Did we pass the Dave Smith test?
I
our
don't know.
reaction?
Gonna have to call him. Gonna have to find
Call
out.
Dave Smith.
So again, you've got Dave Smith, Tucker
That was two
Carlson.
F-bombs, by the way.
I
You
know,
apologize for one. I will
forgot the
apologize for the
second
other one.
one.
There were
Yeah, sorry
two
about
in
that
there.
one.
Yeah.
Sorry, kids. So there you go again. But and I don't know why he felt specifically that he had to lift up and bring up Nick Fuentes's thing. Maybe, maybe he was reading that there was a movement towards trying to blame Nick Fuentes for the assassination or something. I don't know. But here we go again. We've got Nick Fuentes getting propped up and pushed and appreciated by these a little bit older mainstream members of the conservative sort of media ecosphere here.
Before you go on, I did find it interesting because I had not seen this clip before, just playing it now. And so at the beginning, when he was talking about obviously the heightened reaction of many people on both sides, but I think he was specifically talking about conservatives. And then which is very similar to what we were saying.
Who's the he you're talking about?
It's Dave Smith. His clip here. But then Dave goes into how it's hard to tell if what people are saying are genuine. So I thought he was setting up for, you can't, I hear Nick's words, but you can't tell if this is a moment, he's seizing the opportunity to, whatever. But no, it's like the exact opposite of that. So I just coming from someone who, I don't know who Dave Smith is really. And just seeing this clip for the first time, it was weird because I was expecting the way he was setting it up. It sounded like he was not going to praise Nick Fuentes, but he was setting it up to specifically praise Nick Fuentes out of all the people. So
and again, to pick out Nick specifically to appreciate, again, a guy who nobody would have wanted to even utter his name 6 months ago. The underground anti-Semite racist, guy. He even references the sort of caricatures of Nick. I'm not going to make a statement about the caricaturization of Nick or not. I mean, I've seen some pretty heinous clips of stuff that he says. So, it's there. However, we had seen building up this sort of momentum of making Nick, at least presenting Nick as a not totally insane character. And now with the blessing, I don't know if I would call Tucker's lifting up of Nick as a blessing per se. However, it was responsible for this huge bump. Well, after Tucker Carlson mentioned that with Candace Owens about that whole CIA thing, Nick Fuentes went from like 100,000 views per thing to like 700,000.
Well, that's the thing. Like, how do you create that the Streisand effect? If it's someone Tucker's praising, right off the bat, it may not be as effective as if he's like, "Oh, this guy, don't like this guy," like Precisely. The rage will spark a whole bunch of Tucker followers to become familiar with the next enemy, but then the enemy is now speaking logic. Oh, what do we do?
Yeah,
He's
so
saying
like
all
you
the right
say,
things.
Whether Tucker is sort of actively perpetrating some sort of CIA operation, or he's sort of being used and the pawns are being moved around. Same with Dave. To my knowledge, Dave doesn't have CIA connections, but if the operation is to lift up Nick, and keep in mind, why would anyone want to lift up Nick as the new reasonable face of young conservatism? Well, now you can call them all radicals. Now you can call them far-right extremists. Now you can call them anti-Semitic, because there's years and years and years of clips of Nick Fuentes saying the most heinous things. It doesn't matter if he's now in his old age Christ-centered. It doesn't really matter. And I'm not saying he is. I'm saying what we're seeing these clips get put out. Doesn't matter if he starts being more reasonable or coming off more reasonable, because there's a half a decade worth of him saying the craziest stuff. Now, there was one last thing that really sealed it for me for this Nick Fuentes operation. Okay. Keep in mind, Nick Fuentes is the sort of figurehead that represents incels and, unsavory, loser, racist, anti-Semite groypers. A groyper is like the worst thing you can be as far as like a mainstream Democrat is concerned, right? They're all living in their mom's basement. Yeah. As far as the mainstream view, a groyper is a racist, a sexist, an incel, a loser, whatever. Put any sort of thing. That's like what a groyper is in the mainstream definition. And so that's why this stunk to me. And what we have here is a compilation of thirst traps. Now, hold on. Let me introduce you to thirst
What are we
trap.
doing? The show is becoming unsavory very quickly.
This is what put the nail in the coffin for me. A thirst trap can be something as simple as just like a young, good-looking Instagram person, woman usually, showing off their outfit. It doesn't need to be salacious or lustful or anything. You'll see, we'll just show a couple examples here. It's just women put on their outfit and stand in front of the mirror and then put some audio over this, because the visuals of the young woman locks in the person on social media, while the music or the audio plays, communicates the thing being communicated. Just to give you a heads up, Gons, there's a compilation of things here. When the first one ends, just mute it. You don't need to stop it. Just mute it. I'll try to avoid some of the bad words, but the first one is fine. And so here's an example if you've never seen one, and you can read on the screen as well. Is kind of important part of the thirst trap thing. This first one says, dating is so hard when this how I like my men. So you have this good looking woman showing off her outfit, and the implication is this is the kind of man that I like, with the audio.
So why would you?
It's like personal for you.
Well, a little bit.
Yeah.
And anyway, like, who is this kid exactly?
Who's the CIA cutout? Who's the poser? Who is America? I am America. It is insulting, and it is insulting to everybody's intelligence for Tucker to sit there and say he doesn't know his dad is in the CIA.
Okay. Yeah, mute it. So there you go. So the audio, and it plays over and over and over, and there's one other variation. Is you've got these women saying, this is the kind of man that I like, or this is what I'm. Remember, groypers are considered incels, losers, not attractive, not interested, whatever. Stay away from them. And what we have here is a compilation of all these young women basically saying, this is what I like now. This is what I'm into.
They're into the Nick Fuentes.
And they specifically, not only is it audio of Nick Fuentes, it's specifically audio put together of Tucker Carlson calling out Nick Fuentes for knowing his dad was in the CIA, and Nick Fuentes responding to Tucker Carlson saying, you're not America, I'm America, this whole thing. And it just goes on and on and on, like you're playing here, Gons. There's all these women saying, oh, do you listen to music or podcasts while you're working? Yeah, something like that. And then playing in the audio underneath is Nick Fuentes feuding with Tucker Carlson, and it's giving this impression like, hey, hot girls like groypers now, hey, you want
all right, Canarians, all of our, is this what we need now? We need the thirst traps.
Yeah, we do.
Is that the next level?
Canary cry thirst traps would be. Unfortunately, I don't think we're equipped to pull.
I don't think so either.
But so there you go. Now It's already ringing in some people's heads. I already know what you're thinking because you're correct. Thirst traps have also been a thing in recent years that have been applied to various things going on in the world, including the IDF. And just as an example here, we have this Rolling Stone article, why are Israeli Defense Forces soldiers posting thirst traps on TikTok? This is just an example. There's dozens of other articles you can look up. And they explain that organizations like the IDF, in this case Israel, are paying their female soldiers to put out these thirst traps. Basically, like, oh, what are the men that I like? Oh, the men who
Go to
join the
war
IDF,
for
or,
go to the
defend the
IDF
homeland.
specifically. Yes.
And they were used specifically as recruiting tools for the IDF. And so now you've got what is obviously not an organic movement of these young, hot women suddenly out of nowhere wanting to date groypers. It's just not the thing. It's just not what's happening. And so it's obviously a very well coordinated thirst trap campaign. We saw this with Ukraine as well. We see this all over the place. These thirst trap compilations and videos, these are all Instagram influencers. What do they do professionally? They influence. What do we see over and over and over? These campaigns where influencers who have no opinion about anything, they are just there to advertise. That is their job. And it's just a certain amount of money, whatever. It could be $1,000, $4,000. We've seen these campaigns go for like $8,000 for a single post. Putting out whatever message that is getting paid. That's what being an influencer is. And so there is a coordinated, well-funded campaign to give the impression that not only is Nick Fuentes, possibly the new face of the moderate right, or just the right in general, making all the right extreme, but also, giving young men permission to now not hide their love of Nick Fuentes, not hide the fact that they're a groyper, or maybe even be given permission to get into Nick Fuentes, to get into, you've got a generation of young conservatives who just lost Charlie Kirk, their guy. And they need to find a new guy. And suddenly all these women, these hot women, I guess I'll get into Nick Fuentes.
This
And
is
why? Go ahead.
this seems like a Torches of Freedom moment in the Edward Bernays kind of context, where that you talked about it, multiple times in the past, where basically Edward Bernays manufactured an event and
culture,
parade and stuff, a whole culture of making it cool for women to smoke. And they're women. They use women. Bertha Hunt, I think, was the name of the famous woman who was Bernays' assistant. And so the method works. There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, it's the same thing. It's crazy. It would make a lot of sense. It would be very easy for some operative to be like, okay, here you go, influencers. Here's a big paycheck or ad money or whatever. Use this audio clip. This is
all the time.
Track that's gonna
they provide the track, and they provided specifically again the Tucker Carlson track. So what do we have here? We have underneath all the instant emotional gratification of the left going crazy, the right hunting them down to get them fired. They get fired, we're all happy. Every new moment brings a new detail, going back and forth about who this Tyler Robinson fellow was. And underneath it all, you step back and you see a very clearly laid out web and roadmap from Tucker Carlson to Tim Dillon to Max Blumenthal to Dave Smith to thirst trap influencers, all giving the impression that Nick Fuentes is some sort of successor to Charlie Kirk and the new face of young conservatism. And you think, what is the point of that? according to Max Blumenthal, one could come to the conclusion we've seen Israel operate on thirst trap operations before. The theory could be from someone like Max Blumenthal or Dave Smith or whatever, that it benefits Israel perhaps to have Nick Fuentes get brought up as the new center focal point of young conservatism, precisely because of his at least previous anti-Semitism and his current, sort of anti-Israel, America first sort of stance, to create that sort of negative attention that would allow for whatever's going on between Israel and Trump administration right now. It's great justification for following through with some things that the Trump administration has already planned, started, attempted, or is talking about, such as anti-Israel speech on college campuses, shutting down the college, or the making it illegal to whatever, what do they call it? BDS, boycott, divest, and something or other. It's a very strange moment when we saw really, incredible Christian values, understanding, firmness, as far as like a masculine firmness from Charlie Kirk, but a real expression in many cases of this loving sort of Christ-like movement towards a masculine resurgence in how we think and how we do our politics. And then to the circumstances surrounding Charlie Kirk's opinion about Israel in the last months of his life, notwithstanding, come in, perhaps replace Charlie Kirk in the minds of young conservatives with Nick Fuentes, again, creating this situation where a perhaps more forceful hand would need to be sort of top-down instigated as far as protecting the reputation of Israel, protecting the, interests of Israel in America.
Yeah, and it would be a lot easier to, because you always got to think about socially casting a net and then harvesting on that. And clearly the moment here creates a movement, but also a clear divide and conquer for, the separation of different views becoming more extreme. At least in the mainstream, or at least, general public, they feel, I heard a lot of people just kind of, folks around town and stuff, oh, we're as divided as ever. We're as divided as ever. And I was mentioning to you, Basil, before the show that I was 18 years old when 9/11 happened. And so I can kind of relate to the, or in a sense, relate to the Gen Z generation, which the youngest right now is 18, I believe. The youngest part of the Gen Z, I think it's as old as 28 or something. So, or I'm sorry, not 18, 13. So they're right at that age where they're starting to come of age, they're teenagers, whatever. And I remember after 9/11, 2001, a couple things happened. There was a sense of unification in America that, hey, we got to, let go of our differences. We got to come together. And that was a really strong sentiment. But on the flip side, there was also we got to do something about these Muslims, right? There was like this dual level of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And right now I find it interesting that it's very similar in that I think a majority of people are like, we got to do better. We got to come together. You're seeing Democrats saying like, oh, I didn't know my people were so crazy. And, the lists that are being made of anybody who said anything negative about Charlie Kirk, especially since his passing. I think there are people making lists of anyone who said anything ever bad about Charlie, even before he was murdered. And I don't know what the fruits of that necessarily would be, other than, like, you don't want your personal kids to necessarily interact with them or something, but
revenge.
Yeah, sure. But there is a moment where everyone's going, holy moly, this is intense. We have to stop. We have to change. So everyone has this feeling of let's set aside differences. Let's have conversations, whatever it may be. But then underneath it all, there's this hatred for trans. And I think JD Vance just did the Charlie Kirk show today, and I believe his particular message was targeting trans.
Would you call it hatred?
Ideology.
Would you call it hatred? I mean, I didn't see it, but
Sure.
I mean, that's always.
I mean, not
rhetoric
okay.
is
Hatred
of
might
hate,
be
and
tough.
you
Yeah.
could, when you could just disagree with all sorts of things.
Yeah. Right. Right. So, but the trans thing also is a little bit of a misdirection with the Israel issue. Like the people that are really kind of paying attention or in deep are getting a little bit of the Israel stuff. But if you're just kind of a cultural normie, you're getting more of the trans type of stuff, right? And so JD Vance, just as a real quick thing here, I don't have a clip or anything, but I do have, there's articles that are published on this already. And this was all happening while we were kind of going through the stuff earlier with all this. This is ABC News. Vance says left-wing extremism helped lead to Charlie Kirk's killing. Let's see. It says left-wing. So, quote, of course, we have to make sure that the killer's brought to justice. And importantly, we have to talk about this incredibly destructive movement of left-wing extremism that has grown up over the last few years. And I believe is part of the reason why Charlie was killed by an assassin's bullet. So, by the way, the shooter's name, allegedly, the 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, I did get confused because who's that British guy he's like the freedom guy in Britain, in the UK? Isn't it Tommy Robinson?
Tommy Robinson.
Yeah. So I don't know, similar names there. But what was I saying? Okay. So yeah, I have just to say, I have a very similar feeling as post 9/11 when I was 18 years old. And I can't put my finger on it specifically per se, but it's got a similar vibe, Basil. And I don't know if maybe this is like a way for the social engineers to provide the the Gen Zers a similar type of trauma event as millennials, which I am part of, and around the same days. So thank you very much. Now we can mourn September 10th and 11th every year, and not just the 11th. But the trauma, anytime there's trauma like this, you got to kind of pay attention to not just people's reactions to it, but policy changes and all sorts of stuff. And I feel like this event truly, we'll see what happens, man, because there is, you can say the pendulum swinging to the right and conservatism is good. Yes, get out of the left-wing craziness, but also if you keep going, it's a big circle, and there's a point where the extreme left and the extreme right touch, and we don't want that either, So I don't know, man. The whole thing kind of, and I think your breakdown. Are we going to play this clip of Tim Dillon and Blumenthal, or did we already play it? This last one.
Let me look.
I think you talked about it, and you were going to set it. Or you're kind of setting it up, but I don't know that we actually played it.
Oh well, yeah. No, this is the cap to the rest of the thing here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So after. I forgot where I left it, but the point being, there's an interesting sort of web being created to reestablish what is acceptable on the right and what the sort of face of young conservatism would be. Of course, that was Charlie Kirk, and it's kind of open now, but there's a lot of strange ops afoot to try to put Nick Fuentes in that position. And, you kind of, some are wondering, who benefits from that. But in Max Blumenthal's interview and in his article, he did open it up as well to, because in the end, the buck stops with President Trump. So let's just play this. This was a question from Tim Dillon.
Does the president of the United States fear for his life?
Yes. I mean, obviously he fears for his life. And I was told that he feared for his life before the 2 assassination attempts, one coming within a millimeter of striking his head. I mean, let's not forget about that.
But I mean, just to clarify, he doesn't fear for his life because of Ireland.
I mean, I've been told, yes, that Israel is a major source of concern for Trump. I mean, think about it. What would happen?
This is our ally.
If he suspended
arms
if he suspended arms to a country that carries out assassinations all across the globe that specializes in assassinations, that has an entire wing of its intelligence services that conducts assassinations, including with household goods like pagers. Would you not be scared? So yes, Trump is scared. And what I learned from this source, who is a Trump insider, someone who talks to who talks to people in the Oval Office, people close to Trump, is that during one of Netanyahu's many visits to the U.S. this year, some figures in his retinue, Israeli agents, placed electronic devices on emergency response Secret Service vehicles. The Secret Service found them and they reported this to the White House. These would be emergency response vehicles that would respond to an incident potentially involving the president.
He goes on to talk about Netanyahu doing this and being reported in the
Netanyahu personally dropping a listening device into President Trump's toilet, and you actually went back and found that. This was reported in Politico.
Right. Well, not President Trump, but this was
actually
actually
Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson. Yeah. So this was Politico back in 2019. Netanyahu, am I showing it here? Yeah. Netanyahu bugged my bathroom, Boris Johnson suggests. Ex-Prime Minister says his security team, quote, found a listening device in the Thunderbox. Was Thunderbox the name of the toilets out there in the UK?
I don't know.
That's maybe just the wealthy people have it. Maybe the politicians, they handle their business in a Thunderbox. But yeah, this is a story that was out in 2019. Oh, this is 2024. Interesting. I thought the one I found
claimed it happened. Well, 2019 was the Secret Service ambulance was bugged back when Trump was in office. Yeah. So to top it all off, at the same time that you have,
here we go. Sorry, I just found the actual one from 2019. Israel accused of planting mysterious spy devices near the White House. September 12th. Ooh, September 12th. Look at that. 2019. Literally 6 years ago. The U.S. government concluded within the past 2 years that Israel was most likely behind the placement of cell phone surveillance devices that were found near the White House and other sensitive locations around Washington, according to 3 former senior U.S. officials with knowledge of the matter. Remember, this was all during the time of Biden, too, like this reporting, 2019. I know. I'm sorry. This would be the last year of Trump. Yeah. Okay. You're right. This is Trump. But unlike most of the other occasions when flagrant
this is a different one, though. This was the stingrays they had around the White House. I mean, the point is that this is being reported all the time.
Right. They've been dropping. You're right. This is stingrays. Yeah. So this is a common practice, it seems. This is a pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's known. So the point being, in the same fell swoop that you have Tucker, anti-Israel. You have Dave Smith, anti-Israel. You have, Tim Dillon. I don't know if he's anti-Israel, and anti-Israel might not even be the right phrase. That might actually be
political Zionism.
Maybe not even that. Might just be like America first or whatever.
Right,
like Israel, do your thing. I don't want to. I think it's unfair to put easy labels on other people like that.
Of course,
you're not sure, and I'm not quite sure. Probably not anti-Israel, but at least just more, America first, I think is how they would describe themselves. But as you have this group sort of slowly and gently ushering Nick Fuentes to the front as the new face of young conservatism, Nick Fuentes, the guy who's absolutely infamous for not pulling any punches as far as what he thinks about Israel and the relationship with the United States. You see an interesting pattern emerge, and there's a lot of people got a lot of questions as far as what's going on in the Trump administration and the various moves in that direction that we've seen lately. But according to Max Blumenthal, who knows, maybe he's making the whole thing up. Maybe it's total hogwash, whatever. But has allegedly a source explaining to him just how stressed out Trump is about this exact sort of thing.
Right. I will say that just to kind of bring it around to some biblical stuff here, just some biblical lens. Specifically eschatologically, it's really fascinating to watch the whole world rise up against modern nation state Israel. And, labels aside, the sentiment out there for the majority of, Europe for sure, but then a lot of the West, and this is why this topic has become such an issue since October 7th, a couple years ago, has been this, hey, Israel's overstepping their bounds when it comes to the situation in Gaza and Palestine, and the world does not agree with how they're handling that. And it's on this very practical, ethical, I don't know, soapbox or foundation that a lot of people are upset. It's not that they're Jews or that it's Israel, or it's beyond the religious conversation or whatever, or the national or ethnic or whatever. It's just this idea that, hey, we don't like the way this country is operating in this foreign, or a part of the land there to occupy it, and everything else, and killing innocent children and all that. And it's like this very basic standard thing that most people will agree upon. But my kind of looking as a watchman, looking over the horizon, what kinds of things can appear, and what should we watch out for? And one thing that crossed my mind as I was pondering this stuff was, if there is a change politically in Israel, because I could very easily, like, once they get done with whatever they're trying to do in Gaza, I can see them do some sort of regime change, or an appearance of a regime change that's a little more popular with the world, and denounce Netanyahu. We don't like this guy. Let's fix what's going on in Gaza. Let's rebuild and bring in the Palestinians back, and whatever. Like, whatever the situation will be, I feel that is closer to like an antichrist figure who's bridging the gap and bringing peace, and especially with the West, because right now obviously the sentiment is not good. The other thought I had was with regards to the 10 kings, and the 10 kings prophecy, with the mystery Babylon harlot being eschatological Jerusalem, as I believe it to be. I think scripture is fairly clear on that, although people still debate about the realities of who the mystery Babylon and the harlot is. I think it's got to do something with eschatological Jerusalem, and if that's the case, then sort of the timeline of 10 kings that rule the world, and then an 11th king, basically a little horn that pops up, kills off 3, and the rest of them capitulate. And the context of this little horn being somebody that rises for that, modern eschatological nation state of Israel, or Jerusalem specifically, to control the whole system in the end, but also, again, fornicate with the kings of the earth, and get the merchants getting wealthy and all that kind of stuff before the abomination of desolation. Either way, the Middle East, specifically this modern nation state of Israel, it's so central to biblical prophecy that it's hard to ignore the implications of it regardless. I just hope people, and this is how I feel I need to study even more, the scriptures, and eschatologically, like what the Bible really lays out, because it just seems like, that's the thing to do. It's not to necessarily fit Netanyahu as the Antichrist, or, whoever, like some individual as someone great or someone evil. I feel that's a time waster. We need dinosaurs. Kids need dinosaurs. Rather, I feel that, focusing in on what the scriptures actually says about these things is probably a little bit better for our time, if we are to be truly seeking the truth in all of this, because we can get lost in all the details, and it can be very easy to place all of our anger on a group, whether it's the trans or whether it's Zionists or whatever. And in that way, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about stuff, Basil, because I know that 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago, I was the one going up at conferences asking questions about, hey, does the US really need to have, do we really need to be sending billions of dollars to Israel like asking these questions at conferences. And like, it was funny because our good old friend, Dave, or not Dave, Woodward. He and I disagreed about this topic, but he was actually willing to have a conversation about it, and he allowed me to actually ask the question. But I did have to tailor it. Like I wrote it down, and then he kind of pulled me aside and like, hey, let's word this a little differently. I was like, okay. So he was trying to keep me from getting in too much trouble, which ended up not working. I appreciated him doing that, but so it's just interesting to me that I'm having mixed feelings because 10 years ago it was like, man, does anybody pay attention to this stuff like at all at sort of a geopolitical level? And now 10 years later, it's like the biggest op that's happening with our Gen Zs. So I'm like, it's like, man, you can't win. You just got to kind of keep pressing forward and focus in on the scriptures and what it says, because otherwise we're just going to get lost in all the geopolitical shenanigans and the 5th generation warfare. And it's meant to do that, right? It's meant to confuse us and get us all riled up. But I think you and I, Basil, we get riled up about different things, right? It's not the thing that the culture is necessarily mad about. And just to nail it down with scripture, these are things that, I don't know, maybe Nick Fuentes would agree with us on this, Basil. I have no idea. But Matthew 6:33, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. 2 Timothy 2:3-4, share in suffering as a good soldier of Christ Jesus. No soldier gets entangled in civilian pursuits, since his aim is to please the one who enlisted him. Now, there's scriptures that echo this type of sentiment a lot. And, over the weekend, I got a message from somebody saying, how did the disciples just sit there and watch? And I wasn't sure what they meant. I was like, I don't think they necessarily did, that Peter busted out the sword. Jesus told him not to use the sword and stuff, so that they were trying to fight back and protect Jesus in a way. But their point was like, but during the whole thing, like, how do you sit there and watch it? And I can understand, it's that feeling of how do you just sit back and not do something about it, or not feel like you need to do something about it. And I feel that a lot of people are in that place right now where they're like, okay, what do we do about this? And maybe that's part of the op too, to make you feel like you do have to do something. And, in your free time, when you're scrolling on TikTok, or, a young person scrolling on TikTok, and the algos, you get into a little thirst trap bubble on TikTok, and all of a sudden you're getting fed Nick Fuentes propaganda. And it's like, who's this guy talking and appealing to these young ladies? And then they find out it's Nick Fuentes, and boom, you got a whole generation that's being caught in the Nick Fuentes net, because maybe they want to cast that net, collect as many that they can under this extreme umbrella of extremist right-wing whatever that's being characterized with Nick Fuentes, and then do what they did to Charlie Kirk to, next time a whole group of people, not just one person. So, Nick Fuentes is not wrong in that clip you played at the very beginning, where he says that, Christians as believers of Christ, we will be persecuted. It's part of the whole unfolding of end times prophecy. I don't know if he goes that far with it, but that's what it says in scripture, that the saints will be conquered by the beast. So it's not a pretty situation. How that looks, I don't know, but is the beast the conservative party too? Like, are they the ones that are going to take over? Because it certainly seems like the hyper reaction to everything going on is this almost totalitarian system that's very rigidly conservative, and you get killed or canceled if you don't abide by the politically correct things, which I'll agree that a lot of it is much more in line with how I feel about things ethically. And I'm not defending any liberals or progressive people. I am simply stating the fact that observing and commenting on the reactions of the populace here, and pointing out the potential pitfalls and traps, because a lot of people are in a very, very heightened emotional state. And as we know through not just history, but recent times, that's how the whole operation works. It's trauma-based mind control. They have to have that trauma first. It suspends everything, it mixes everything up, and then you're able to program much easier thereafter. So, guard your hearts, guard your minds, because the operation is in full effect right now. And I'm not even saying that Nick Fuentes is or isn't part of this. And I don't think you're saying that either, Basil, that he's directly involved with this, or even Tucker Carlson's directly involved with this. It's just interesting how all these different players came to the public with a similar message at the same time and delivered and are delivering this sort of I don't know, a platter of new faces, of which Nick Fuentes seems to be the new guy. Although, so you said he was Catholic specifically? Is he like openly Catholic, or is he just kind of like? Okay, so Candace Owens is Catholic, Nick Fuentes Catholic. Interesting. That's all I'll say. Because there's another group. People always talk about the Zionists, but you know who hasn't been mentioned a lot in the last few years are the Jesuits. And I'm not even saying modern Jesuits per se, but just the line of Jesuits that really got into different parts of government and started doing things in the U.S. And one could argue, and there have been arguments and research to tie in the entire Jesuit apparatus with the Zionist operation there too. So all things Basil, they're so frivolous, man. It does make me feel like I need to go on a vacation or something. I just need to go somewhere where I don't have to look at this stuff every day. But it is what it is, and it is our job to at least point to the truth in all of this, because otherwise we'll go crazy. So you got to laugh about it, but also point to the truth of the matter. Amen.
Okay. Amen. Sounds like a blast. Yeah. No, I mean, that's
Sounds like a blast.
Sounds like a
Let's
blast.
get persecuted for our beliefs. Sounds like a blast. It's a blast.
That's what we're here to expect. Okay. I don't know what your timing looks like, Gon. So we had some updates on Nepal, which is a pretty interesting thing. Again,
Yeah, we
kind
can
of
fly through some things here. I do have to
similar
to-
themes regarding the young people. We're going to start out here from the New York Times. Will we? Do I? Oh, no, this is the Times. Wait, this is the New York Times. Where's the New York Times? There it is. The headline is "The Fleeting Fantasy." This is interesting. I don't recall this being the headline, but here we go. "The fleeting fantasy of a king who would return to save Nepal." Nepal's days of rage, when its young people won the ouster of the prime minister, left the door open to the most unthinkable outcomes, even rumors about the restoration of a dethroned king. This is so interesting. That turned out to be a brief royalist dream. It is a former Chief Justice, Sushila Karki, who now leads Nepal after last week's protests and arson attacks, not King Gyanendra, who ended his family's 449-year-old dynasty by abdicating in 2008. And with that, the door swung shut on the fantasy of remaking Nepal as a kingdom. This was very interesting. In the early days of the Nepalese protests or I don't know, riots, revolution that were happening last week as well, the headlines were describing it as a pro-monarchy revolution. And, you read in a little bit, you see, there's been pro-monarchy protests going on all year, maybe even for a couple of years. And in the early days of last week, oh my gosh, these pro-monarch Gen Zs are taking over the country. That's crazy. And it's interesting because you don't see that headline anymore. There's not a whole lot of pro-monarchy youth groups taking over Nepal. And it's interesting because you do go to Wikipedia and search out the Nepalese protests. There are now two separate pages, one for 2025 Nepalese pro-monarchy protests and one for 2025 Nepalese Gen Z protests. And so even the media in at least the West has been a little confused. And I think what we're going to end up seeing is that the pro-monarchy protests that were primarily happening earlier in the year, March through June, found a footing, found an access point when firing up the Gen Zs in Nepal. And early reports were that these Gen Z protests were to specifically return the king, to turn it from what they claim as some sort of democratic republic back into a monarchy, which had very interesting flavor to it. It's important to remember that when they talk about, I don't know if they call it a democratic republic. They do call it some sort of republic, but a parliamentary republic, I think, is what it was. Despite it being a parliamentary republic, every political party that had any power was communist. There was a bunch of communists
The
running
Maoist and
republic.
Maoist and communist, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that was explicitly. That's not just like being, they're all communists. No, they are
No.
explicitly communists across the board.
No. Like literally, in the article, it says that the three parties that emerged as dominant within the post-royal order was Nepali Congress, Maoist, and communist. Each had waged armed struggle against the monarchy. So
yeah, Maoists are communists. What I'm saying is all three of
I
those,
know.
no matter what their name is, are communists. There's a communist republic altogether. But the so-called Gen Z protests disclosed something about the extremity of Nepal's situation once its army had restored order. Nepalese from all walks were ready to reject the system they had fought for decades to achieve, even without any clear sense of what comes next. Protesters had taken to the streets with placards raised against corruption and spoiled elites. Homes were burned down too, starting with those belonging to the leaders of the three parties that have rotated in and out of power since 2015. Quote, the young people gave no sense that they wanted the monarchy back. Oh no, only that they were furious at the post-monarchical establishment. According to Amish Molmi, 41, an author who writes about Nepal and its geopolitics, quote, they just didn't want these parties back. While the Gen Zs lack a unifying figure for now, there's another political idea waiting in the wings, an alliance of monarchists who want to replace the carousel of Republican leaders with a uniform allegiance to the crown. Monarchist groups had risen up in March to hail the former king and demand his restitution, only to be put down forcibly by the state police. In retrospect, their uprising looks like a harbinger of last week's uprising. The monarchists have at least some common ground with the gigantic Gen Z protest movement, including the will to rush the barricades. One pro-royalist protester was shot dead in the earlier violence. At least 70 people were injured, and others were taken into custody. The ruling Shah dynasty had withstood challenges from all sides until a horrific explosion of rage from within the palace. In June 2001, the Crown Prince Dipendra took an AK-47 rifle into his family's dining room and massacred the sitting king Birendra, the queen, 7 other royals, and then himself. Gyanendra, who was never popular, succeeded the slain king, and the monarchy itself began to crumble. Oh no. 3 parties that emerged as dominant within the post-royal order, Nepali Congress, Maoist, and Communist, each had waged armed struggle against the monarchy. Never a united front. They also competed with each other. After Nepal became a republic, though, they have mainly fought through elections without gunfire. The governments they formed were unstable, on average lasting barely a year, but a kind of stasis set in, usually with 2 sharing power and a third in opposition, that bred the corruption and impunity that frustrated the Gen Z protesters. Decentralization and social media made such problems more visible. Oh no.
No decentralization. No.
Watch out. Well, that's the warning here, isn't it? Now, it's interesting because this probably was able to succeed because of some sort of support or interaction with the West. No real revolution takes place without a little bit of CIA interference here. So I mean, it's not hard to imagine that CIA or the West would have an interest in bringing down a sort of corrupt communist or any communist government for that matter.
Yeah.
And of course, doing it through, it all kicked off when the current communist government banned a bunch of social media. The early storyline of this whole thing was that the kids were mad that they took away their Instagram and they burned down the palace and took over. But of course, it is that decentralization of communication and the difficulty of controlling the internet in a place like Nepal that doesn't quite have the resources like China to just have their own internet.
Right.
It's harder to do. The Gen Z protest organizers said their comrades not to carry any political flags, not even the national flag. They explained later that Nepal's distinctive pennants had become too associated with ultra-nationalism of the royalist kind. Mr. Rana, a political scientist and former mayor of the city of Nepalganj, showed Gen Z was not calling for restoration. He too believes in democracy and wants a constitutional monarchy, not the return to an absolute monarch. Okay, we're getting like a UK system here.
Yeah.
Yet historically, quote, everyone would accept the king as the leader of the nation. He said that was a unifying bond and, quote, the people are used to that kind of authority. No, they're used to it. They're into it. Then it goes into some opposing points of view here. Was there anything specific you want to dive into?
No, I think we covered most of it. The footage coming out of Nepal was crazy. All the parliament on fire. There was a guy who was an influencer who was just there. All of a sudden, he's taken video and he's become, worldwide famous because it looks like he's in a, I don't know, like a Blair Witch movie or something. It is just the wildest footage you've ever seen. And I guess decentralization. There you go.
Yeah.
The move. This is a microcosm of what. Again, it feels like the stoking right now, the coming of age for Gen Z into the the political sphere in like a more tangible way as they either are going into their teens or are about to enter their 30s. I just see that this is again a coming of age for that generation, and different types of traumas going on to instigate those types of movements. And in Nepal, it appears that this is a way to get the monarchy back, maybe to piggyback a little bit on the Gen Z popularity of Gen Z's, sort of anti-establishment stance. It's a great way for the
conservatism too.
It's conservatism.
There's again, it says here, the former king, now Gyanendra Shah, lives in a decommissioned palace, which protesters left alone. That's nice of them. He issued a statement in support of Gen Z and its aspirations, with mild wishes for an end to the anarchy. His niece, the former Princess Pernika Shah, went further on Facebook. She commended, quote, the dreams and courage of the youth, which will drive us forward, but said that guidance, security, and stability were necessary too. Quote, only when heritage and youth are together will our country remain strong. So this sort of reflection of not just the youth and energy and dreams and freedom of youth, but partnering that with what she calls heritage here, which I think is another way of saying tradition or traditionalism, which is really what we're seeing in the Gen Z in America as well. This return, we call it politically conservatism, but really people realizing that the whatever structure of not just government but society they've been handed and have inherited that has repelled them and betrayed them for so long, that there is value to returning to some sort of heritage, tradition, something like that.
Right.
So it would not be crazy to imagine a sort of reflection of that sentiment here in the US, and I think we are seeing it. TheTimes.com, and this is where it got fun, and again, is right in line with what Canarians have been predicting for so long. Nepalese protesters used ChatGPT to pick their new leader.
Do you want to destroy humans?
Okay, I will destroy humans. Okay, I will destroy humans.
It took less than 48 hours of protest for the youth of Nepal to oust the prime minister. Their next task was not so simple. How would they decide who would be the leader of their interim government? In true Generation Z fashion, they turned to technology and asked ChatGPT. The Times has learnt.
They learned
it. The artificial intelligence chatbot served up a list of potential candidates at the request of young Nepalese. on an online forum called Youths Against Corruption. The list included Sagar Dakal, an engineer who did his MSc at Oxford, Sumana Shretha, a politician and former education minister, Balen Shah, a rapper who is the mayor of Kathmandu, and Sushili Karki, a former Chief Justice of Nepal. Members of the forum, when asked ChatGPT to debate the pros and cons of the various stand-in leaders, quote, "If I were to pick, I would lean towards Sushila Karki for an interim transitional government," the AI tool said in response to one user's prompt, quote, "because she seems likely to command trust across different groups and could help oversee reforms in the paths to fair elections. For a longer-term PM, someone like Balin Shah might be very suitable if they can build the political support needed to avoid being co-opted into old dynamics." So ChatGPT, AI, coming in, stepping in to make the hard decisions for Gen Z. Let's see here. Let's do this. Karki 73, the only woman appointed by Nepal's most senior judge, will represent the Gen Z protesters in negotiations with the army, which has imposed a curfew in the capital on Thursday. She was chosen as interim leader by the youth group Hami Nepal, a previously little-known collection of Gen Zers, apparently leading the movement for political reform that runs the Youths Against Corruption group on social media channel Discord. You know, this Discord thing is very interesting because Discord's also a platform that's become very important for the investigation for Charlie Kirk's assassin. And now Discord is the place where the government of Nepal is being chosen by ChatGPT. The channel is
Join our
also...
Discord, canarycry.party.
Yeah, go to canarycry.party. Jump in the Discord, folks. We're deciding the government of, I don't know, somewhere else tomorrow. And it goes into kind of the longer conversation that they had with ChatGPT. But it's very interesting. The Discord group is chaotic and riddled with memes, insults, and curses. Yeah, sounds like a Discord channel. Many users have been banned for making comments deemed inappropriate by the moderators, who are themselves anonymous. One user, aged 17, claims he was kicked out of the group for disagreeing with moderators. That's what they all say. Quote, "I was talking to the guys on the server and correcting them, telling them this was wrong, and they blocked me from the server." Well, it'll happen. Documents generated by the Gen Z groups are often headed with a Jolly Roger skull and crossbones symbol. It was adopted from the Japanese anime show One Piece, popular among youths in Nepal, many of whom see it as an inspiration for and symbol of their movement. The show also inspired Gen Z protests in Indonesia in August. It sounds like this anime One Piece. Have you ever watched One Piece?
I've watched a couple episodes, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like
been a
it's
long
some
time.
sort of deep Japanese intelligence operation to crumble the leadership of nations in Asia.
Oh, trust me, the every anime is an op. Like if you just look at every anime, it's got an op. Yeah, it's about a boy, Monkey D. Luffy, who gets the ability to stretch like rubber after eating a mystical
It's
devil fruit.
Themed. It's pirate themed. He's a pirate, or he's a kid who wants to be a pirate, gains some powers, and then becomes a pirate and has pirate adventures. It's very,
Yes.
I guess because of the pirate stuff, there is some anti-establishment.
He eats the mystical devil fruit to gain his powers.
Yeah. There's a live action version of One Piece, which is really creepy. But some people
it alludes to a lost period of history hidden by world government, by the way, the show's theme.
Yeah, it's got like a lot of Tartaria, flat earth. It's got some ice wall stuff. It's very interesting. While we're on the topic here, AI and government, Albania's prime minister appoints an AI-generated minister to tackle corruption, Gons.
Oh, good. Yeah, this is coming from AP here. Headline: Albania Prime Minister appoints an AI-generated minister to tackle corruption. And it says here that Albania's prime minister on Friday tapped an artificial intelligence-generated quote-unquote minister to tackle corruption and promote transparency and innovation in his cabinet, officially named Diela, the female form of the word for son in the Albanian language. The new AI minister is a virtual entity. It is a virtual entity. Diela will be a, quote, member of the cabinet who is not present physically, but has been created virtually, Prime Minister Edi Rama said in a post on Facebook. Rama said the AI-generated bot would help ensure that, quote, public tenders will be 100% free of corruption. Oh, geez. And will help the government work faster and with full transparency. Transparency really picking up in all political conversations now, isn't it? It's crazy. Diela was AI's up-to-date models and techniques to guarantee accuracy in offering the duties it is charged with, according to Albania's National Agency for Information Society's website. Diela, depicted as a figure in a traditional Albanian folk costume, was created earlier this year in cooperation with Microsoft as a virtual assistant on the eAlbania public service platform, where she has helped users navigate the site and get access to about 1 million digital inquiries and documents. Rama's Socialist Party secured a fourth consecutive term after winning 83 of the 140 assembly seats in the May 11th parliamentary elections. The party can govern alone and pass most legislation, but it needs a 2/3 majority or 93 seats to change the constitution.
Almost there.
Yeah. Oh, pop-ups. The socialists have said it can deliver European Union membership for Albania in 5 years, with negotiations concluding by 2027. 5 years. Okay. The pledge has been met with skepticism by the Democrats, who contend Albania is far from prepared. The Western Balkan country opened full negotiations to join the EU a year ago. The new government also faces the challenges of fighting organized crime and corruption, which has remained a top issue in Albania since the fall of the communist regime in 1990. So the communists fell, and then they got socialists in there?
Yeah.
Is that what's going on? I mean,
How it works. Yeah.
Okay. Diela also will help local authorities to speed up and adapt to the bloc's working trend. Albanian President Bajram Begej has mandated Rama with the formation of the new government. Analysts say that gives the prime minister authority, quote, for the creation and functioning of AI-generated Diela. Asked by journalists whether that violates the constitution, Begaj stopped short on Friday of describing Diela's role as a ministerial post. The conservative opposition Democrat Party-led coalition, headed by former Prime Minister and President Sali Berisha, won 50 seats. The party has not accepted the official election results. Yada. It could just more Albanian politics there, unless you had something in there that was really of importance, Basil.
Well, I did like the response. It says here the Democrats' parliamentary group leader, Gazman Bardi, said he considered Diela's ministerial status unconstitutional. Quote, Prime Minister's buffoonery cannot be turned into legal acts of the Albanian state, Bardi said posted on Facebook. Parliament began the process on Friday to swear in the new lawmakers, who will later elect a new speaker and deputies to formally represent Rama's new cabinet. So buffoonery. But it's interesting because they're just on the next. Whoa, what's going on here? Oh gosh, don't play pop-ups. Too many pop-ups.
I know the AP gives a whole bunch of pop-ups. It's just
so
infuriating.
annoying, AP.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, AI is we're seeing these steps. I mean, they're not actually the first one to integrate the AI. Estonia did it really early on. It just kind of seems to be these post USSR sort of countries, the communist bloc countries, seems to be the first ones really officially integrating AI into the government. So it's like Ukraine, it's kind of like it's a little test tube. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. Anyways, there you go. I'm looking at the time, Gons. Are you okay?
That took a lot longer than I thought. That was 20 minutes. I thought we would be like 5 minutes on everything at the end there, but
Well, I could say the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do that. You know what? Let's take a second, thank some producers. Up until the beginning of the show, there was almost 0 producers, and we are on the value for value model, folks. Have you heard about it?
Oh, yes. I've heard about the value for value model, Basil. It goes something like this.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
That's right. Oh, you know what? Caleb's mentioning the Charlie Kirk Act. We didn't. We'll dive. We'll dive
we
deeper on
got
that on
time
Wednesday.
for
It's not an official act. I mean, it's a thing. There's
it is
about trying to pressure Trump into repealing the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which it looks great that a lot of people are kind of waking up to this. However, there's no sign or reason to think that this is going to go any further than an online petition. But hopefully we'll have more info by Wednesday. But
plus, my quick take on it is that even if they do pass it, the nature of propaganda is so different now that it would have to be revised and I don't know, get some good brains in there to rewrite some of it, because it's not. Smith-Mundt was a post-World War II thing to prevent domestic propaganda. Obama reversed it, Smith-Mundt Modernization Act in 2013, which is how we got a lot of propaganda unleashed legally through loopholes in this country. And so to close that loophole, sure, but the nature of propaganda will just change. It's kind of like the criminals; they always find a way, no matter what the laws are. So
but it's great that the movement and people are waking up and actually
yeah, of course, people are learning about it.
We'll take a deeper look at that. But folks, we wouldn't need the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act if everybody was on value for value, because we do know that the corruption in media, the lies, there's no legal obligation for legacy news to tell anything resembling the truth. In fact, most of it is an entertainment product paid for by primarily the big pharma commercials, which are not to actually advertise drugs and things. It's to buy the health and wealth of the big news media. But not here, folks. We don't take any money from corporations, commies, cartels. Truly independent media. That word gets thrown around quite a bit. Oh, independent media, independent media. Independent from what? Because if you're taking money, selling ads, selling sponsorships, those types of things, well, that's just exactly what CNN does. That's just exactly what the legacy media does. So what exactly are you independent from? But now here we are truly independent. We take no money from corporations, cartels, commies, platform partnerships, nothing. We are entirely sustained, A, by the grace and mercy of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and B, from his people who get value in what goes on here. And if this show brings any value to your life, it could be anything. This is something for each and every one of us to search in our hearts and our souls. Do we get any value from this show? And if we do, to recognize and come to the ultimate conclusion that the show does not and will not exist without individuals putting value back in, and that value can take the form of time, talent, treasure, whatever it is that God's given you to participate in what he's doing here on earth. That's what it takes. And boy, oh boy, was it pretty slim pickings before the show started today. I believe we had one producer before the show started, and that well, I'll say this. We had one producer, and that one producer was Cage Rattler Coffee.
Hey,
Cage Rattler Coffee. Go check it out, CageRattlerCoffee.com.
I don't have the jingle ready.
Oh, okay. Well, go to Cage.
Now I do.
.com.
Cage Rattler Coffee, where value for value never tasted so good.
That's right. CageRattlerCoffee.com, producing the show when no one else will. And you can do it too. I get a lot of people, they're a little spooked right now. They don't feel like they want to support anything. You know, there's not a whole lot left in the cookie jar, but you're paying money for coffee anyway. So you might as well go to CageRattlerCoffee.com and get the best possible coffee that the Canarium has to offer. It's making everybody else's coffee jealous that ours is so good, and people won't stop talking about it. So go to CageRattlerCoffee.com. We got beans from the Nicaragua, from Honduras, from the Congo, from Costa Rica, I think. We got the Nephilim Hunter Dark Roast. We got the Emu Wrangler Medium Roast. And a portion of every sale of every bag goes to support your favorite podcast. Isn't that nice? Wouldn't that just change the world if everybody drank a little bit of Cage Rattler coffee before coming on the show? Guns, you drink Cage Rattler coffee on a regular basis. And if you want to be like Guns, that's what you got to do. Plus, it's created small batch, roasted small batch, packaged individually by our dear Canarian producers. So not only are you supporting the show, but you're supporting other Canarians. This is that parallel economy, folks. This is what's going to get small groups like ours through the tough times. So go to CageRattlerCoffee.com, support yourself, and support the show.
Yep.
Thankfully, after the show started, we had some executive producers come in, and we're going to thank them now. Executive producers are people who come in, they produce the show for $100 or more for any individual episodes, and we are so grateful to them. So we'll thank them now.
Okay.
Starting with, of course, Sir LX Protocol, V2, Baron of the Breen Protocol.
There he is.
Coming in for $100.33. Thank you, Sir Alex Protocol. He's on a 424 episode streak and a 78 executive producer streak.
78. Nice.
Thank you. We've got executive producer Sir Jamie, not the Lannister, coming in for his weekly tithe. Thank you, Sir Jamie.
Thank you, Sir Jamie.
We had, oh, that's interesting. I put somebody in the executive producer list who's not an executive producer. Oh, here we go.
Almost fell through the cracks.
There we go. Actually, we're going to thank executive producer Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca comes in, supports the show with a nice round number, which means we don't disclose it on the show. If you don't mind us disclosing the amount, you make it some sort of fun number. Put 33 cents on there, 77, 1, 2, 3, 4. You get the drill. And Rebecca says, thank you guys for everything you do. I wish I could give more. Well, thank you, Rebecca. You're making a huge
Thank you, Rebecca.
Women rule.
That's right.
That is it for our executive producers. We got some producers who came in under that. We're going to thank them now. They're coming in over $7.77, which entitles them to have a note read on the show. Starting out with Dame Sarah of the Shadows.
Dame Sarah of the Shadows. Thank you.
Dame Sarah of the Shadows came in for this number 77.74, which is a weird number that a few people are coming in. I'm wondering if maybe there is some amount of support that after fees are taken out brings it so close to 77.77 that I'm just confused. But I don't know. 77.74, is that a new trend? We can start the 7774 trend if everybody wants to produce that much. Thank you very much, Dame Sarah of the Shadows.
Thank you, Dame Sarah.
Dame Froggy came in to support the show. Coming in,
Dame Froggy.
Nice round number. Says a tiny boost for producerships. Love Dame Froggy. Thank you, Dame Froggy.
Thank you, Dame Froggy.
Or I guess it's Dame Frog.
Frog.
I don't mean to infantilize our Dame Frog by saying Dame Froggy, but it's spelled sort of French in a way. So, last but not least, we've got producer the American Hobo coming in for $23.32.
American Hobo. Thank you very much.
American Hobo's on a streak, a 40 episode streak.
Woo! All right.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry. Finish
Well,
up
I was
with
gonna shout out to, we got someone in the chat. Unveil Truth says, give address so they can send you cash. I only work with cash. That's true. Well, we do take cash.
yeah, we
and
do.
remember, folks, if you want to support the show, all you got to do is go to canarycry.support. It's very easy. canarycry.support. You'll see all sorts of fun ways to support the show over there. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see our snail mail address, Canary Cry Radio, P.O. Box 32 in Bonsall, California, 92000.
Bonsall,
Bonsall, California, 92003. And Gonzo, make sure to check the mailbox.
It's been a lonely mailbox for a while.
Lonely mailbox. There you go. Thank you, Unveiled Truth. Again, all that's at canarycry.support. Go check it out.
Just a quick question on the producers, just to make sure I have it accurately. Was Cage Rattler Coffee an executive producer today?
No.
Okay, because you did it first, so I was kind of confused.
I know. I was giving them credit for actually coming in before the show.
Before the show. Right. Okay, got it.
All we had. We only had our friends at Cage Rattler. There you go. The breakdown on Nick Fuentes was so powerful that people produced the show during the show. Okay, there you go. And remember, folks, you can produce the show with your talent. If you're a musician, an artist, anything like that, you can create some art for the show, make some jingles or music for the end of show mixtape. And you can go to canarycry.art, canarycry.art, and you can upload your art there. We'd love to feature it on the show. Do we have any art lined up today, Gon?
We do. We have to catch up a little bit because we're a little behind on some of this stuff. Let me just see who I want to start with here. Come on, stuff is not working. Did you do the Labubu one? Or is that just AI?
The last one we did was the Labubu.
Okay, so the Labubu, the one after that is from Jonathan F. There's a bunch of audio stuff that came in. So there's
I think we should stick with the plan that we made last episode.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Plan.
That was last episode, though. All right. So this first one that I have here, you may have seen it as part of the art last week. Let me just make sure I'm crediting the right person here. Do you recognize the artist for this one?
I believe this was from Jolmes.
Jolmes.
Yeah, this is from Jolmes. Jolmes sent a few things in. We're going to give him credit for this one here. Did not send a note. It was just a beautiful image of Basil, very powerful, strong cheekbones, big voluptuous lips. It kind of reminds me of some weird art piece you'd see at Burning Man or something, but it's got me there with my new VR headset with the big googly eyes on it, a disembodied head, and reaching out from the bottom is a disembodied giant Basil hand reaching out to connect, or perhaps maybe to catch himself from falling.
Save me.
Yeah, exactly. We liked it so much. We put it on the thumbnail art last episode. Thank you very much, Jolmes.
Thank you, Jolmes. We also have something from IAnon. It's a little comic strip here.
Yes, thank you very much, IAnon. Another wonderful, how many cells? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cell comic strip. From IAnon. It starts out up at the top. It's Basil coming back from Burning Man, kicking open the door, saying, "I'm back, slam." And there's a Basil robot that has taken my place on the show. Very excellently depicted, backwards hat, Basil 2.0 robot. And Basil says, "Gods, what is this?" And there's Face Like the Sun. The producers, they told me, build for us a new Basil, for this other Basil went to a Black Rock City and we do not know what happened to him. Nice reflection of the golden calf story.
Yeah,
that's very good. So I took some data and I poured it into AI generator, and out came this Basil. And there's a very cool looking Robo Basil 2.0 saying bleep, bloop, blurp. Very creative. Love the biblical references, IAnon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, IAnon. Next up, we have a piece that is featured on part of our art for today from Ellie Bean. And Ellie Bean has a note. Yeah, this a note that reads, "Your guys' show are so good that it inspired me to draw a piece. There you go. Thank you
Did
very
it.
much.
Very well
Yeah.
done, Ellie Bean. This is very fun. Nice thumbnail size square. It says Canary Cry up at the top in a beautiful sort of lavender with a sketched out UFO, nice and shiny, flying over. It's got its tractor beams activated, and down below is a very cute Basil and Gons, Basil Canary version. Got the sort of Hawaiian shirt on with the VR headset and the googly eyes, the chibi style. Is that right? Is this chibi style, Gons?
Yeah.
And you've got Samurai Guns depicted with his samurai gear and in a cute chibi style depiction of his dog image. What do you call it? The PFP, your devotional dog there. This is beautiful. There you are. Thank you very much, Ellie Bean. Thank you, Ellie Bean.
Ellie Bean. Thank you. Next, I think this is the last one for today, and it comes from Elias, I believe. Yep, Elias. And there's a note here. Hi, guys. Here's a picture of you two in a giant CCNT robot fight. God bless.
Thank you very much, Elias. Love the giant robot CCNT style stuff. This has been an ongoing history-defining art collection by Elias. And on this one, we got CCNT robot fight. On the left, we've got the giant robot Basil in canary form, who's got almost like a rooster. It's kind of got like a propaganda rooster head
I think
on
that's
the
what it is, yeah.
robot. Got a giant swinging spiked flail in one hand, and the other hand looks to be like a machine gun. I've got robo bird feet, which is a very creative. That is a new feature. I've never seen robo bird feet before. Very good, Elias. On the right is the giant Gons robot, sort of a domed head. You've got a giant spike. For one hand, you've got look to be a multi-missile launcher on one shoulder. Your other hand seems to be some sort of mini Gatling gun there. This is very ferocious. There's a helicopter shooting at you, Gons. There's a plane shooting at your legs there.
Yeah, why is everybody going after me? I'm getting bombarded over here. This is
tank. You're the tank of the team, meaning you take all the damage while Rooster robot Basil comes in and does the
I think it's supposed to be, take you by surprise, because if you scroll up a little bit, amidst the darkness of the header there where it says CCNT robot fight, there is a missile heading towards you, Basil.
There's a missile on its way in, out of orbit. And below at our feet is the burning wreckage of what I'm going to say is some sort of evil, maybe New World Order base. I believe that, of course, we would never destroy any civilian infrastructure. But as far as the dark rulers and military oppressors of this world, that's what the CCNT robot fight is here to take care of. Thank you very much, Elias. Very creative, very well executed.
Very nice. Thank you to all the artists. It's been a while, so I appreciate all of you and your art. Helps create the culture behind the community, and you guys can use this to post stuff on your own social media. Maybe link to the show and you can use this art.
We have some more art in the hopper here. We will be rolling it out in appropriately bite-sized portions here over the next couple episodes, but submissions are still open, folks. So if you're a creative person, just go to canarycry.art. You can upload it there. We'll feature it on the show.
Yep.
We got some producers who came in with their time to help us out, which is always appreciated. Couldn't do it without them. Yeah.
Before we do that, let's real quick, just because we're trying to do things. Mention the meetup, the Missouri meetup coming up, number 3
yes.
in downtown Rolla, Saturday, September 27th at 1:11 p.m. at Alex's Pizza. It's the all-seeing Alex I Pizza meetup. And this is one that you're going to want to be at if you're a Canarian in the region. So
yeah, we got a lot of great Canarians in Missouri. So if you're in Missouri, you probably already know your other Canarians. But if you're in Missouri and you're like, wait, there's more Canarians here, go to this meetup. It's in Rolla. Yes, like you said, Saturday, September 27th at 1:11 p.m. at Alex's Pizza. We have a thriving Canarian community. I know that there will be some Canarian celebs there as well. So if you want to meet,
the state of Missouri might be the most, I don't know, Canarian friendly in many ways.
Yeah,
That people
well, we
people
got
don't
a
even
lot-
realize the connections that exist between Missouri, the state, the government.
Yeah, we got a lot of Canarians over there. Well, you know, we got Canarians in high places all around the country. But
we're quiet infiltrating. Okay,
there you go. Go to Canary Cry meetups.com.
Canary Cry meetup.
all right. Now we can thank some producers
Okay.
for their
Thank you to the
wonderful
timestampers doing the timestamps.
Timestamp.
It's hard work. Timestamp.
That's right. We got our timestampers timestamping the show, oftentimes doing it live. It goes into so much of our back end processes, and we're so thankful. Who are we thinking today?
Jade Bouncerson, thank you for doing episode number 875. I'm sure it was kind of a doozy to timestamp anyway. But
why was it a doozy?
Well, because that was the show that everything happened. It was, it's always
right.
kind of, it's interesting because this show is somewhat built for days like that day. And, I get it that it's not like the greatest feeling to have a bunch more live viewers on days like that than, your normal day. Which, part of me is going like, come on, people, like, what are you doing? Like, we need a tragedy in this country for people to tune in, but also we're kind of made for that type of show. We were live during Jan 6 when that was all unfolding. And I think we documented some things live that just got lost in the mix when it comes to the cultural conversation afterwards. And I think similarly, we're just kind of built for stuff like that and going live and analyzing things and keeping a cool head, because I know a lot of people, we're looking for information, and I think hopefully we provided some level of conscience during all of it, and point people to the right stuff, not just the information, but also sort of spiritually and emotionally, for people to deal with all the craziness and the suffering that people were feeling. So there you go. Yeah,
it's all about sanity. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Of course, thank you to Jam, who heads up the Telegram channel. Thank you to Adam42, who heads up the Discord channel. Lots of crazy things going on over there. If you're a Discord person or a Telegram person, or you want to become one, go to canarycry.party. You'll see the invite links there. Go join those communities. Lots of great Canarians over there. Thank you to Joe for the feedback. Thank you to Clank for Clank. And thank you to Sir Ike for doing all this cool Sir Ike stuff for us. And other than that, share the show. Or don't share the show. You should probably share the show, but to keep an ear out if you don't want to. But you should share. At this point, we have no idea. Our numbers make no sense whatsoever. We're very confused.
I don't know what's happening.
Our numbers are so sideways right now, and none of it makes any sense. And I don't know what to say about that, except for there's people watching the show, and there's people not watching the show, and there's no way to know of how many.
Pure manipulation. Pure manipulation. Somebody's going to jail for this. We're going to find out who the perpetrator is, and we're going to put him in jail.
Yeah, so you should share the show anyways, because what we need is some sanity. We need level-headed. We need to come at it, I think, specifically in a way that is not designed to bring in ad dollars or sponsors, because that can sort of flavor the way things happen, especially on a live show like ours. And so share the show whenever you can, wherever you can. We call it, what do we call it? Rattling cages. And all you got to do is walk right up to him, grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted. I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
Human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. Guns, you got any last words?
Let's see. We'll see you Wednesday. Tomorrow is The Black Wednesday. George Soros breaks the Bank of England in 1992. We get to celebrate Black Wednesday from 1992 when George
Wow.
Soros broke the Bank of England. So maybe on that anniversary, there's something special that's going to happen in the UK. Head on a swivel, fellow Brits.
Bitcoin. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.
I love the Great Reset. Toilets! Feed him more.
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people zoo.
Armageddon's on the way.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
For God alone, my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress, and I shall not be shaken. How long will all of you attack a man to batter him? Like a leaning wall, they only plan to thrust him down from his high position. They take pleasure in falsehood. They bless with their mouths, but in their heart they curse. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence. All hope is from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress, and I shall not be shaken. Trust in him at all times. Pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for all of us. Those of low estate are but a breath. Those of high estate are a delusion. If they are weighed on the scales, they are altogether lighter than a vapor. Put no trust in extortion. Set no vain hopes on robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart on them. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence. All hope is from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress, and I shall not be shaken. God has spoken once, but I hear this in repetition, that power belongs to God, and to you, Lord, belongs steadfast love. For you will repay men according to their works. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence. All hope is from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress, and I shall not be shaken.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.